A bit of cloud, a bit of rain, but also cooler, fresher air across the bulk of the country. And so as a result, we start the night across England and Wales with clear skies, so it's going to turn quite chilly. But as the showers in the north become more widespread, we see the winds picking up a little bit. We're actually going to see temperatures lifting a little bit. So first thing tomorrow morning, for many, it's not going to be quite as chilly as it has been through some recent starts. Nonetheless, in some places, it could be a bit fresh, a bit cool, for example, across some parts of Scotland. Temperatures may drop low enough for a touch of frost, but the big talking point will be the fact that there are going to be so many showers around. Plenty of blustery showers towards the northwest, frequent showers across many other places, some of them falling as sleet or snow over higher ground. Showers across parts of Northern Ireland, much of England and Wales. Some of them will be heavy, some of them could turn thundery as we go through the day, especially towards eastern parts. And whilst there will be some drier, even brighter weather in between, sunshine is going to be pretty limited. Now, as we go through the day, we are going to see winds strengthening, particularly down the western side of the country. So watch out for some blustery conditions here, also around parts of the southwest. And those blustery winds will make it feel cool at times, especially seeing that temperatures are down a few degrees compared to today for many of us. More showery weather to come as we go through the next few days. So Thursday's also looking quite showery. Perhaps inland areas seeing fewer showers, but many coastal parts towards the west are seeing plenty of them, and the showers becoming a bit more widespread really as we go through the day. Friday may be a drier day for many of us, and we stick with that drier theme at least to the start of the weekend, and temperatures should rise a bit as well.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
£76,543 and 21 pence in tax-free cash could be yours this summer. That's totally tax-free cash to spend on anything you like. And remember, because it's totally tax-free cash, you'll get to keep every single penny for a chance to win. Text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB21 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 26th of June. This is a network giveaway. Entries will be pulled. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Is completely unique in the way that we interact with our viewers.
Our audience aren't afraid to have their say. They want their voices heard now, and they've got a channel where that can happen.
I find more and more as I'm wandering around, people come up to me and they say, we saw you on television. I say, oh yes, on what? On GB News.
Hello, are you the famous Sue? The whole crew hid me here now. We came to celebrate.
It's our job to be the eyes and ears of the viewers.
They are part of the GB News family, and I'm pleased to say it's a very large family.
And if people go to the time and trouble of listening and watching, then we've got to do a good job for them.
Well, I'm here, right in the epicentre of the protest.
Here we go again. You just tuned in. Where have you been?
It is raucous here tonight.
That's what makes us the fearless champion of Britain.
Good evening, good morning, live from Washington, D.C. This is GB News with the stories shaping Britain and America. Tonight, President Trump spoke exclusively to me about an embattled Prime Minister refusing to resign. Buckingham Palace is furious. His own party is forming a mutiny. How much longer can Sir Keir Starmer hold on? I'm Bev Turner, and this is The Late Show Live. A GB News exclusive to start with. President Trump reveals to me exactly where he thinks a beleaguered Prime Minister went wrong and why he's now facing an open rebellion. Royally unamused, Buckingham Palace is furious with Downing Street tonight as they warn against the King being dragged into Sir Keir Starmer's political crisis and questions whether today's state opening of Parliament should even proceed. Also tonight, Cabinet's collapse. 4 government ministers quit. The number of MPs calling on the PM to resign is approaching 100, and West Streeting is preparing for crunch talks. Right now, Downing Street looks less like a government and more like a Monty Python sketch.
I command you, as King of the Britons, to stand aside.
I move for no man.
So be it.
Strangely apt. Welcome to The Late Show Live. Joining me this evening in Washington is my panel, Chief Strategy Officer at the New Lines Institute, Azim Ibrahim, is here, and founder of Media Advisory Experts, Mark Albert, as well. Welcome, gentlemen. We've got a lot to get through this evening. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. And in London, I don't know what the collective noun is for political pundits, but we will come up with one by the end of the night, because down the line this evening, we have Paul Cox, we have Jonathan Liss, we have Matthew Torbett, and we also have Michelle Donnellan. So who wants to give me, first off, a potential collective noun for political pundits? Go.
A rash. You're not beating that. I'll go with that.
Yeah. A gob something, a gob blank, fill it in. Anyway, you will be doing a brilliant punditry tonight, I'm sure, ladies and gentlemen. But kicking off this hour with our GB News exclusive, President Trump revealed to me this morning why he thinks Sir Keir Starmer is facing an open revolt from within his own party, government and the general public. Speaking to me via his own personal mobile phone, he said his two, that's Starmer's, biggest problems are energy and immigration. Those, he said, are his two big problems. He should open up the North Sea immediately and get your energy running the right way, and he's got to stop illegal migration. And then he had to go because he's catching a plane to China. But right now, a defiant Prime Minister is continuing to ignore growing calls to resign, instead visiting a college and apprenticeships, which, I don't know, maybe he's looking for another job. A total of 4 cabinet ministers have now called on the Prime Minister to quit, the high profile of which, of course, is probably Jess Phillips, but also Alex Davis-Jones, Mayata Fanbullah and Zubair Ahmed as well, all called for him to go today. And former Home Office Minister Jess Phillips' letter was scathing. She directly hit out at the PM, stating, "Decency is vital, calm curiosity is also needed, but so too are fight and drive. Have a row, push back, make arguments, bring people along." She said standing up and being counted can't always be workshopped, and that is a real blow to his style of leadership. Well, later today, Wes Streeting will sit down, reportedly, with the Prime Minister to confront him over the turbulence engulfing Labour and to demand to know how Sir Keir Starmer plans to escape the mess. The very fact that we think it is Streeting who is demanding to know something of the Prime Minister tells you how little power the PM has left. And ahead of today's state opening of Parliament, Buckingham Palace is also said to have voiced concerns about the King being dragged into the political crisis, with them reportedly questioning whether the event should even go ahead. Let's talk to my panel here to kick us off this evening. Azim, there's a lot to get through right now, but your impressions as a Scot who lives here, what do you make of what's going on?
First of all, I have to say, Bev, I was very impressed with President Trump having diagnosed a problem in the UK very precisely. 2 biggest problems, energy and immigration. You know, I'm one of those people that criticises the Brits, thinking that they're everybody in the US is paying attention, but it seems that President Trump is one of the key people that's paying attention, the most important person. Look, the reality is, Bev, there's no way to sugarcoat this. This is a car crash. There's complete uncertainty in the UK in terms of what's happening. Keir Starmer should have left today. There's been no major cabinet resignations to kind of push him over the edge, but now he's lost 100 MPs. There's simply no going back. He's lost the confidence of the party, despite having a whopping majority, of over 100. There's just no way that he can go back now. And the sooner he goes, the better it will be.
And Mark, at times like this, politicians, of whom you have interviewed many, many over the years, you spend a lot of time with these kind of people, are they right now all worrying about their own seats and their own political futures? And the machinations that we're seeing are very self-centred.
You know, there's sort of a theme in the US that every US senator looks in the mirror and sees a president. Perhaps in the UK, every member of parliament looks in the mirror and sees a prime minister. And so I have no doubt that if things are similar to politics in the US, that there are behind the scenes maneuvering. You saw that with several of your ministers. And so the question does become, who has the momentum? Who has the backing? Who actually can pull off the revolt? Is it anybody? And if it's not, it's going to be the same PM.
And who's waiting in the wings, do you think, Azim, would make a better Prime Minister?
Well, it depends. I think anybody will probably be better than Keir Starmer, to be honest. I think he essentially, he was an accidental Prime Minister in many ways. He wasn't actually, the majority he got was a loveless majority. And, people like Andy Burnham now, who have actually, spent time as a mayor in Manchester, actually done stuff, delivered. It's going to be a much more effective operator, I think. And even somebody like Ed Miliband spent a long time in opposition and now has actually got a lot of experience under his belt. I think a lot of them will be much better. The problem with Keir Starmer is that he was never actually political. He didn't actually have an ideology. He didn't have a reason to be Prime Minister, except we need to get, first of all, Jeremy Corbyn out and then Boris Johnson. But he didn't have a foundational philosophy that drives it forward.
It's interesting. I'm going to be talking to Neil Oliver in just a moment. Your Scottish accent made me think about that, actually. Fan of, legend, GBNews legend Neil Oliver, about that, whether he does think that Keir Starmer has an ideology, because that's one of the big questions. What does he actually believe in? Is it nothing, or is it something quite extreme? And Neil has a strong opinion on that. But let's go, first of all, to our shower of political commentators, down the line. Let's go now to Jonathan, Matthew, Michelle and Paul, just to kick it off. Jonathan, Liz, I'm actually going to start with you. I feel like I only spoke to you about 8 hours ago. I don't know how long it was when we clocked off at 3 o'clock in the morning. But we thought, when we finished the show last night, that we might see more movement today. Are you surprised that pretty much nothing has happened in terms of Starmer's action?
Absolutely, Bev. I don't think that we are outliers in saying last night that today would be the momentous day, that Starmer would either have to leave basically there and then, or what you and I thought was likelier, that he would be forced by someone like Shabana Mahmood or Yvette Cooper to set out a timetable for resignation, so that they wouldn't actually resign en masse Boris Johnson style. Because I think that what we thought last night, and I think which is still true, is that the mood in the Parliamentary Labour Party is one of discontent, but there's still a degree of affection and respect for the Prime Minister, and they don't want to completely humiliate him. And that is why I thought that they would allow him to sort of set the terms of his own departure. But but it seems what happened is that none of those cabinet ministers was prepared to go over the top. And a lot of people on the left and the soft left, the Labour Party, do not want Streeting. And as things stand, Streeting is the only person who would be able to mount a challenge, and then Rayner would go against him, but Rayner would rather Burnham was in. And so it seems to be a waiting game to see if Burnham can get in. But of course, Burnham still needs the approval of Labour's Central Committee, the NEC, which is led by Starmer. So there's the complications and the table, the chess pieces are still very much all over the place.
Yeah. And it is a chess piece at times like this, Michelle, isn't it? It is the board and who is going to move where. You've seen this before in your experience as a politician. What is going on behind the scenes now?
So, although you describe it as a chess piece, it's also chaos at the same time. And what we will see over the coming days, if it gets that long, is panic. So you've got your MPs that are going to the tea room, winding one another up, getting their knickers in a twist, thinking we're going to lose our seats. They're getting a load of incoming saying Keir's got to go, and then they're seeing stagnation, as we've sort of seen now with the resignations. And so you'll see a trickle more, and you'll see a second event of that happening. This obviously is a lot slower than what happened with Boris Johnson, because that was just like the dam broke and there was nothing stopping it. It was really quick and sharp. Whereas he's going to suffer a very slow and painful death, the way that this is coming out and presenting over the next few days, especially with that King's speech. So everybody's going to be respectful tomorrow.
Yeah, Matt.
So it's Thursday, we've got to watch.
Yeah, thanks, Michelle. Matt, what would make the dam burst, do you think?
You'd think it would have come by now. Where Streeting's obviously had allies to try and drip feed their resignations into try and bounce Number 10 into going, OK, we'll jack it in now. I spoke to someone in Number 10 this morning. They said we're digging in. Like, they're not going anywhere unless they have to. And I thought it was interesting that Starmer threw the gauntlet down, really, at Streeting, at the Cabinet, and said, that we're getting on with things and that's that. The briefings tonight are interesting. It's either come from Number 10 to look like they're in listening mode, or this has possibly come from Streeting to go, no, look, I'm the one taking it to him. I think he's risking overshadowing the King's speech, which is going to lose him even more support. There's people already peeling away tonight. I think there'll be something else. There's no by-elections at the moment. There may be one in the future. Keep your eyes peeled. I don't think we'll lose that one, depending on who the candidate is, though. I've got a funny feeling. But I think something of that ilk, where there can be something else for somebody to latch on and say, OK, no, enough is enough again now. There'll be something else. It may be the further text we're expecting from Mandelson and the inquiry into that.
Well, Paul Cox, what do you make of the next steps? What is going to make the dam burst, to use Michelle's analogy?
Well, I don't know, actually, because it feels like every step since the local election was a big enough crack to make that dam burst. And if we've finally found out what Keir Starmer's good at, and that's basically hanging around in places he's very much unwelcome. So it'd be very interesting to see. I don't feel like he's got legitimacy anymore. That's all a bit of a vibes type thing, because obviously he still has the mandate from 2024. But what happened last week was obviously a test of confidence in Keir Starmer. Reform ran on vote for us, get Starmer out. They've pretty much achieved that, and it's just a matter of time now. The serious nature of this, though, is that all the time this is going on, the markets are in turmoil. The civil service is completely locked down, so nothing can happen. Esther McVeigh was on earlier talking about a constituent that's trying to deal with a family murder, and she was hoping to speak to the Justice Minister who'd stepped down. The Victims Minister, sorry, who'd stepped down. That's all in turmoil now.
Yeah.
And we forget that as this plays itself out, and of course it has to, and it can't be helped as part of the process, there's a lot of real-life problems that need fixing and that are not going to get fixed.
Yeah. Which I have to say was Starmer's argument for staying in position. That's kind of what he said, just to be the only person, you know, here who's just defended him in the last 5 minutes. That's what he said. You don't want more chaos. You get rid of me, there will be more chaos. Well, let's see. Right, moving on. Let's talk now. The GB News legend, contributor, Neil Oliver, who I am desperate to talk to about all this, because Neil, I know you think Westminster politics is all probably a load of nonsense, really, but you have quite a strong opinion, don't you, on who Keir Starmer is and what we're now learning about him. What do you see from your position?
I'm filled with questions, really. I suppose fundamentally I wonder whose asset he is. It's increasingly apparent that he doesn't and hasn't for a long time served the people of Britain. You know, he is not functioning in that way. The last round of elections clearly showed that he's not wanted. Neither are the policies pushed by his party. And a reasonable person might have assumed that the response would have been to resign, to call or to set in motion some kind of snap election, a general election. But his response to the people who've made it more plain than they have ever made it to any other British Prime Minister that they don't want him and they don't want the policies. His response has been, well, you're going to get more of me and you're going to get more of the same policies. So it begs the question, I say again, who does he serve? Whose asset is he? He is a fascinating character to look at over the longer term. When you look back to his political childhood, so to speak, he was communist left. You could characterise him as a Trotskyist, but really he was a Pabloist. You know, he was even an extreme form of a Trotskyist. And then since then he's been on this strange trajectory, which has seen him really take up the position of aligning himself with the stakeholder capitalism of the World Economic Forum and Klaus Schwab. You know, where he's now having been a communist in his youth, he's now reached the point where he's anti-democratic. He's insisting that corporations, transnational corporations, are the people best placed and best equipped to make the significant decisions. He has been a member of the Trilateral Commission, which was set up by David Rockefeller in the 70s. He has been a member of that. He may still be a member of the Trilateral Commission. So he's famously, the interview that he had with was it Emily Maitlis, where she asked him outright, would he prefer to do business? Was it in Westminster or in Davos? And without a moment's hesitation, he said Davos. Westminster's too constrained, and in Davos you can talk to people and feel as if you're really getting things done. So you begin to get glimpses of where his loyalties, if he has loyalties, actually lie. But they don't seem to lie with the British people.
But one of the criticisms of him, Neil, is that he doesn't believe in anything. People looking from the outside say they can't predict what he's going to do on any particular issue because he doesn't believe in anything. Whereas you're saying, well, he does believe in something, but what? Keeps his true beliefs rather well hidden, would you say? Because no doubt if he was here, he would dispute all of those characterisations that you've just presented.
But again, you know, you have to ask, who does he serve? We watched. There's been a process in recent years, really, where we don't just see political parties lose elections, what happened to the Conservative Party was it looked like the destruction, it looked like the controlled demolition of a political movement. And it seems to me that the same thing is happening with the British Labour Party. This isn't just them losing ground. This isn't just the mood music that prepares the country for, another handover to the other side. This feels like the last Labour government. This feels like the last time we will have this ideology presented to us, and it feels like that much bigger European picture, where we're seeing the most unpopular politicians refusing to go. Emmanuel Macron in France, Chancellor Merz in Germany. They're all the most unpopular leaders that their countries have ever had, and they just dig in. Where Germany's confronted with, AfD, Alternative for Germany, the only response is to try and shut that party down via censorship and arrests and the surveillance of the members. The same thing is happening in Britain. It's just been announced that 7 people who had been planning to attend a patriotic rally organised in London at the weekend, 7 of them, including Eva Vlaardingerbroek, who I'm familiar with, and others besides, have been told they can't come to the country because they're bad for the commonwealth of the British people. Yeah. That seems to be the only response that these people have.
Yeah. Even though those people are not guilty of any crime in the eyes of the law, they aren't allowed in the country to unite with the rest of the British kingdom at the weekend because of their political views. Neil, I could talk to you all night, you know that, but I do have to move on because we've got ever such a busy show. But we really, really appreciate you staying up until midnight, and I will talk to you again very soon. Thank you so much, Neil Oliver there. Right, moving on very quickly now to Reform UK MP for Romford, Andrew Rosendale, joins me now. Andrew, I think Neil poses an interesting question, and we're interested in this idea of what does Keir Starmer believe in? Does he believe in a very far left agenda? Is that what we've seen under his premiership? Or does he actually want to keep backbenchers happy, the constituency happy, wants to keep the country happy, and in an effort to keep everybody happy, he ends up keeping nobody happy?
Well, good morning, Bev. First of all, I think he is far left. I mean, he has always been a far left socialist, and he's covered it up. I think he's sort of hidden that since he's been Prime Minister. And I think he wants to continue in office. I think that's now his most important priority. He seems to have ditched anything he particularly believes in, and he's just now focusing on staying in the job. I think it's really bad for our country that we now have a Prime Minister who's in limbo, a government with no purpose, and a country facing serious problems, and a government that's just not fit for purpose. So what we really need now is not a leadership election, but a general election.
Well, what's so funny, Andrew, is that we all said, oh, wait until the local elections, Keir Starmer will hang on in. Mandelson came and went, and we said, it's OK, he'll hang on in. And then when they get trounced at the local elections, that's when he will step down. Well, apparently everyone else got the memo except him, and he's not going anywhere, Andrew, at the moment. Are you surprised that he's still digging his heels in?
No, I think he's going to cling on as long as he can. I mean, that's the nature of what prime ministers do, at that stage. I mean, that they've all really clung on as long as they could. But it's very clear that he's lost the confidence of the Labour Party. He's certainly lost the confidence of the country. But my main concern is the country itself, because, of course, I don't support the Labour Party, but I do think the country needs a stable government, and we don't have that now. So we're faced with potentially, months of limbo while they choose a new prime minister, and then a divided government thereon in. So really, the country at a time when we need leadership, when we need a strong, clear vision for our country, we don't have it. We have a government that's basically going to be a zombie government for the next 2 years. And I think that's the most worrying thing for me. And I just worry about the future of our country when we don't have a government that can govern.
Yeah, OK, Andrew, thank you so much. Reform UK MP for Romford. Yeah. Andrew Rosendale joining us on The Late Show Live. Thank you so much. Good night to you. Right, still to come this evening on The Late Show Live.
I'm not going to shy away from the fact that I've got some doubters, including in my own party.
Well, it seems that it's not just his own party where the Prime Minister has doubters. Buckingham Palace has reportedly asked whether they should continue with the state's opening of Parliament later today. And I've got fresh details, hot off the press, on what we can expect at that speech. This is The Late Show Live, only on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From court mornings
to warm family brunches,
from football to tennis, in the car,
in the kitchen.
GB News Breakfast is there with the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it?
We're here again to start your day just right. GB News Breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Is it over for Keir Starmer? Will you ask him to step down, Minister? Has the Prime Minister lost confidence in the Cabinet? Do you have confidence in the Prime Minister?
Welcome back to The Late Show Live, where the Prime Minister is barely continuing to cling on to power. And it seems that even Buckingham Palace are fearing whether the Prime Minister can last any longer. They have reportedly privately asked whether the King should proceed as planned with the state opening of Parliament later today for you, tomorrow for us here in America. And some details of what might be in that crucial speech are starting to emerge. GB News understands that the government is hoping the speech will, quote, restore hope. Good luck with that. And among the measures expected to be included is the proscription of the IRGC amidst the surge of anti-Semitic attacks in the UK. That's an interesting one. Immigration reforms centering around restricting the use of Article 8 of the European Convention on Human Rights, which aims to safeguard the respect for private life and family life. And also, we believe it's going to include a bill to give powers to the government to renationalise British Steel, because, of course, the Prime Minister did mention that actually in his speech yesterday. But will it be enough to save the Prime Minister, and will these bills ever see the light of day? Let's talk now to Reform UK Councillor for Epping Forest, Jamie McIver. Jamie, thank you for joining us, and congratulations on your results of last week of your party for Thursday. Quite spectacular. I'm sure you would agree with me. Now, we just heard a little bit there, Jamie, about what we might hear in the King's speech tomorrow. Probably the one that you would very much agree with, I imagine, is the prescription of the IRGC in the UK, and it's rather stunning that that hasn't been the case so far.
Yeah, do you know, it's just all too much too late. It's taken tragic incidents to happen that we all know these things should have been done, and it's taken what for the Prime Minister to nearly lose his job to suddenly say, right, let's just chuck together a King's speech halfway through our term as one last hurrah to try and save my own career. It's almost brought some sort of cheapness to the seriousness of what that means, and an important decision that the country should have made a long time ago. But the truth be told, Ben, I'm done. I'm done with these politicians. I'm sick and tired of them. They are a disgrace to this country. This is the best country in the world. I absolutely love our country, and to see us become a laughingstock because of these incompetent people in government, backed up by weak, inexperienced people in Parliament. This is a government acting as though it hasn't even got the will of the people. It basically has, because the House of Commons, loads of members of Parliament who are unable to even get anything through Parliament that means something to the British people. These people have actually brought politics into a new level of low, and no wonder the public are just so done, and I'm done. I feel I'm sick and tired of these people. I think we need a general election, and I think that needs to come very quickly, and I think we need to drain the swamp and get rid of these establishment politicians that have literally brought our country into decline and give our country a new dawn that it needs. And I believe Nigel Farage is the man that can do that.
Well, if you're going to be an MP, Jamie, you better get used to working with these people, because you have to work with a lot of them.
No, they'll all be gone.
Years, but just very briefly.
They'll all be gone, Ben.
They'll always be politicians. You're not going to get on with all of them, trust me. But listen, the King's speech is meant to inspire hope in the country. How could he do that? What would he have to say for you to listen to that speech tomorrow and feel some hope in your heart that we're going to be okay?
If the King was to give me hope, he would say, Bev, I'm asking my government to dissolve and call an immediate general election to save the country. That would be the only thing that would give anyone in Britain hope. And we saw a glimpse of that hope last week when people went to the polls in their millions to support Reform UK. So I sincerely hope that if the King's speech happens tomorrow, it's the last King's speech of this Parliament, and I sincerely hope that that is the reality for our country. There is nobody that can save this country in the Labour Party. The Tories are finished. The country's had enough. We have to get rid of Starmer. We have to have a general election. We have to make sure Nigel Farage is our Prime Minister. It's the only way we will restore this country back to some sort of greatness. Okay. I dread to think what's going to happen if it doesn't happen.
All right, Jamie, thank you so much. Jamie McIver there, Reform UK Councillor. Let's go over to London. A few questions that I want to pose to my cacophony of commentators down in London there. Paul Cox, put your phone down. Talking to you. That's good. So listen, I thought what Neil Oliver said, Matt Torbett, let me come to you. When Neil said this could be the last ever Labour government, it's quite a claim, but it did make me stop and pause for thought, actually, whether he's right. Do you think he is?
Well, Stockport stay Labour, so I'll be all right. I think other than that, I mean, no party has a divine right to rule, and you know we've always had somewhat of a two-party system in this country. You know, we've seen things like the SDP in the 80s and others sort of moving from Liberal to Labour way back when. But I'm not sure about the last ever, but we are in a total flux at the moment. People are frustrated with what they see as the status quo. They don't believe that the system is delivering for them. I think there is definitely a sense of unfairness that people feel that they're playing by the rules and can't get on. Essentially, the social contract is broken for the majority of people in this country. So they're desperately looking at alternatives, whether that be on the right with Reform or on the left with the Greens. They're hoping somebody can do something different. I think think my fear is if either of those two ended up in power, they won't be able to do anything different. The system is far too deep, unfortunately, and it would take... I mean, this is a decade worth of job. This is why Keir Starmer's getting nowhere. There's no patience. People are fed up.
Yeah, but when you say nothing will change, Matt, let me put that to you, Michelle. You've got the most insight of what's going on behind the scenes of government, what Liz Truss would call the deep state. We might just call it faceless bureaucracy, whatever you want to call that blob that exists at the behind and underneath government, if you like, or above, maybe pulling the strings is a better analogy. How problematic is that? And do you recognise the question when people start to pose it? Who is he working for? Which overlord is Keir Starmer trying to please, or any Prime Minister for that matter?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple of things there. In terms of Keir, I think he genuinely doesn't know what he's trying to do, and that's the main part of the problem, that he has no strategy, he has no vision. He came to power and his ultimate goal was to get into power, and it was almost like that's job done, and that's why we've seen 16 U-turns and the country being driven into the ground and now imploding. But in terms of the inertia and the problems that we see within our country and the issues that we saw in my government and then in this government, I do think there is a point around the system being too slow to respond. I think the Liz Truss scenario supersized it and went far to the other side, and there's a balance point in between. There are some fantastic civil servants in our service. However, it isn't run like a business. There are no KPIs. Ministers don't have a say over whether somebody stays or goes. Yeah, it should be. It should be much more performance-based. It should be an efficient, lean system, because at the moment you've got a number of them that are carrying the rest, and that's why you get burnout, and that's why you get the best going to the private sector, and that's why every time a government comes in and they say we're going to cut the number, all it does is all the brilliant ones say, right, I'm off to the private sector before I get pushed, and then that just reinforces the problem. So we've got issues like that, but I think, let's not hide behind that. These problems that we're seeing today are of Starmer's own making. He's the one that chose to go after our grannies and the guys that put food on our table. I mean, that was him. Nobody else is to blame but him for this undoing.
Bev, can I just point out, the reason why we'll struggle to have a performance-based system in the civil service, specifically looking at Whitehall, is I speak to my partner about this all the time. She was a senior civil servant for a decade, and the problem is it's hard to have performance-based targets if you're working for a dud of a minister. And the constant churn that we have, unfortunately, in our politics means that we have a dearth of talent, and that it's a very shallow talent pool. So if you've got a Prime Minister that doesn't know what he wants to do, the likelihood is you've probably got a lot of ministers that don't really know what they want to do if there was a plan to win the election but not a plan to govern. So therefore, you're led by your ministers, and if they're hopeless, then the civil service is only as good as the ministers in front of it, I'd say.
Yeah, but you've got the permanent secretaries that are running it from an official point of view, who can monitor workload, output, effectiveness. I take your point that we do need to be electing the right people into Parliament, and people that are effective and capable and have the right motivations. But at the same time, that can't be an excuse for people that are actually meant to be delivering.
Well, I was going to ask Paul Cox why better people don't go into politics, because I think it's a really important question, but we've got to move on just for a moment, guys, because I've got another guest here, but I'm going to come back on that one because I think you make a really good point. With me now, Labour commentator Simon Nash. Simon, thank you for joining us. You've heard a lot of people here basically putting the boot into Starmer and saying he's got to go. What is he waiting for? Where is his shame? What are we looking at here? Is it stubbornness? Is it pride? What are we seeing, Simon, unfold before our eyes?
Well, I think Keir Starmer has a great will to do the right thing and has done a lot of good things. A lot of this is based on emotion and based on his character, and I think there were dark forces at work. You've got the Renters' Right Act. I know people in their 20s, 30s, even 40s who've been kicked out of long-term tenancies with 2 months' notice. Keir Starmer's put an end to that. If you're a kid in a care home, you could get kicked out and sent to a DOS house as soon as you turn 18 during your A-levels. Well, Keir Starmer's put an end to that as well. Defence spending has gone up. He's looking to nationalise the railways. He's nationalising steel. All these are really good things, and there are lots of forces out there that don't like that. And I noticed that the people that seem to object to Keir Starmer is all very vague. It's something to do with farmers and what are the specifics that people don't like? It's essentially his character. I mean, do you want Have I Got News for You presenter like Boris Johnson, who's very charismatic and maybe doesn't do the best job, or do you want someone that's doing a good job, actually in terms of policy, who maybe isn't the best on TV? I would choose the latter.
You see, I think, Simon, that the British public would take somebody with a slightly more mundane personality, and indeed that is who was voted into power, probably for that very reason, that we were sick of the likes of Boris being clowns and thinking it was appropriate in that position. But with Starmer, I think he came out of the blocks. He upset the pensioners, he upset the farmers, he upset students, he upset Jewish people, he upset Muslims, he upset Christians. Like, there was every demographic, it seems. It just seemed to upset everybody. There was almost nobody left by the time he'd been in office 12 months. And apart from if you were on minimum wage, and he raised minimum wage, well, guess what? A lot of jobs disappeared on minimum wage because employers couldn't afford it. You know, I don't think it's been about personality for Keir Starmer now. And what we're seeing what are we seeing in his personality right now?
Well, I mean, personality is one thing, but in terms of the minimum wage, if you can't afford to pay £1 or £2 extra so your staff can live a healthy life, then it's probably not a viable business in the first place. I mean, on the issue of pensioners, a universal payments to everyone just because they're old to pay for heating and so on, I think that's ridiculous. Pensioners are actually some of the wealthiest people. Yeah, pay for the poor people to heat their homes, but not every single pensioner. They're the richest group of people in our society. So, yeah, he's going to offend people to do the right thing. And as a Christian, well, I think, well, actually, he's doing the love your neighbour thing through his policies, and his wife's Jewish, so I think he's offended everyone, and if he has, it's for the right reasons.
Simon, I do wonder, though, people look at a lot of these U-turns, and Michelle just mentioned, I think she said, the 16 U-turns, and actually the pensioners was one of them. They had to go back and relook at it, and also inheritance tax for farmers, they had to go back and relook at it. Are a lot of the problems, do you think, land at Rachel Reeves's door, in fact? And as the Chancellor, she has made mistakes, and that maybe he should have got rid of her sooner?
Well, I don't know about speculating about who to get rid of. I mean, in terms of U-turns generally, though, I think they're actually often a good thing. You know, he puts a policy out there and then people say, actually, that's awful for these particular reasons, and then he changes his mind on it, because the overall goal is to serve the people of Britain overall. So if there's a policy idea that doesn't do that and he's thought about it more and had feedback, I think that's actually a sign of good leadership. The whole, like, Margaret Thatcher thing, oh, the lady isn't for turning. I mean, that's just a ridiculous idea, from poll tax to other things. I think U-turns are a good thing. It shows that he's actually listening, and also as a political party, in the Labour Party, we're giving feedback, and that's often it means a compromise, but it's more democratic than just having a leader who does what he wants. And
just briefly, do you think he should hang on? I mean, it just can't, can he? It's not tenable. So in which case, how long does he stay for, and what does the transition of power look like?
Well, listen, borrowing rates for the UK have gone up, and people's mortgages have gone up because of the speculation over Keir Starmer possibly not being able to hold on. He is going to stay, and that's going to stabilise things, and borrowing is going to go down because of that. We need stability. This absurd system in the UK of changing Prime Minister, this would be a fifth Prime Ministerial change in 6 years. That is a disgrace for the country. It's not good for everyone's bills. He needs to stay in power and finish his mandate and do a good job, and I think he's doing a good job. We can't just keep changing Prime Minister on a whim. It's an absurd thing for the UK. As a patriot, we can't allow that.
All right, Simon, thank you so much. Labour commentator, great to see you. Simon Nash there. Right, still to come this evening on The Late Show Live.
Let's just step back, take a breath. Let's remember that we have the King's Speech. We are in government to do a job of work.
Just take a breath, everyone, and we'll be all right. The government is not in crisis. Were you reassured by that? It's not strictly true, though, is it? Because borrowing costs have hit a decades-long high today as pressure continues to mount on the Prime Minister. We'll get stuck into that in just a minute. This is The Late Show Live with Bev Turner, only on GB News.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Breaking news, live updates, stories that matter.
From the heart of the GB newsroom to every corner of Britain, with our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
GB News bulletins are there to deliver the latest news that matters to you.
Bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point.
Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I've been in Westminster for a long time, but I know that though power may be here, its effect on people's lives is across the whole of the country. We may be where rules are made, but it's where they're implemented that matters. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for forthright and frank discussion on where Britain has come from, where it's going, and where it will end up. That's State of the Nation, Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Vox Populi, Vox Dei.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
But I'm not going to walk away and plunge the country into chaos. I think the right thing to do is to rebuild and show the path forward.
Well, Keir Starmer didn't want to plunge the country into chaos, but it seems that he has anyway, because today the cost of UK government borrowing has hit a high not seen since the financial crash of 2008. When the benchmark borrowing cost rose to 5.12%, a near 20-year high. So is Sir Keir Starmer playing fast and loose with the nation's finances by refusing to make a decision about this? Azim Ibrahim, let me come to you on this. How bad is it financially at the moment in the UK?
Well, it's extremely bad at the moment. The rates are now higher than when Liz Truss was forced to resign. I remember how much of a noise everybody made about that and laid the blame on the Prime Minister at the time. And now we have a situation which is significantly worse. And it's the uncertainty that the markets don't like. You know, it's not the fact that whether you're pro-Starmer or anti-Starmer, the fact is markets do not like uncertainty. And I think Keir Starmer and the rest of the Cabinet should see the situation and essentially ask him to step down, if for no other reason but for that, to bring stability back into the markets, because the country simply cannot afford this anymore.
But that wouldn't happen anytime quickly, would it? If he stepped down, I mean, how do you make the transition of power? My understanding is whatever happens, none of this is going to be quick, particularly if you want Andy Burnham in there, because he isn't even an MP.
Yeah, but there's a number of possibilities. If he steps down, I think, and he puts an interim Prime Minister in place, I would imagine somebody like Ed Miliband would come into place until a longer leadership election happens to bring some sort of stability. If, on the other hand, it's a long, drawn-out campaign, then I think it's going to be a much more complicated.
Now, Ed Miliband, if you aren't aware, Mark, is he's our eco-zealot. I think he's Minister for the Environment. I think
energy.
Energy,
Yeah,
isn't it? Energy. But every time he's on telly, he's banging on about the fact that we've got to save the planet with renewable energy. Very much in opposition to the opinion of your president here, in fact. So this guy would be a controversial pick, Ed Miliband. I think it's fair to say. But would that, in your opinion, be the right direction of travel to move towards a cleaner energy supply for the UK?
Well, the Trump administration has famously been against some clean energy projects. They have gone to court to stop over $1 billion worth of windmill projects off the Atlantic coast, and they're trying to do other things on the West Coast as well, plus in the Gulf of Mexico, Gulf of America, whatever you call it. There's some projects there. So the Trump administration absolutely is against some of these projects, even though the demand for energy in the US and the demand for energy in the UK is only going to rise.
Yeah.
So if you're against other clean energy projects, how are you going to make up that deficit? And I think that on both sides of the Atlantic, that core energy, the demand for energy, has to be addressed.
Yeah, very, very good point, actually. It's all very well to say we don't want the clean fuel, but we're ultimately going to need both of it with the data centres as well. We're all going to need as much energy as we possibly can. Let's talk now to the Director at the Centre of Economic and Social Reform, Joseph Robertson. Joseph, thank you very much for joining us. We're just talking there about the economic and financial impact on events that we're seeing today and happening in Westminster, really since Thursday, or since the results of the elections came in on Friday. What's going on economically? Give us a best case scenario, Joseph. People might be going to bed soon. Don't give them nightmares. What's the best case that we can look for here?
Well, I wish I could help there, Bev, but I mean, the reality is Keir did come in saying that we're going to get growth, and growth has been at best anemic in recent times. I mean, I think what the markets always require is stability, and right now there's a dire uncertainty going into the King's speech tomorrow. I do think that speech could go some way to persuade the markets that we do have a direction of travel, depending on how those final meetings go between the Prime Minister and his understanding of how that speech will develop. But I think the reality is there's no clear route to growth. There's no real communication on how that plan to growth is going to get there. And of course, we know that under the Conservative Party, Keir was one of the most vocal opponents of the lack of communication when it came to certain budgets. So I think this is all about communication, in my opinion. The city loves good communication, and the markets love good communication. And unfortunately, Keir isn't too good at communication.
What about the nationalising of British Steel, though, Joseph? Would that be good news for the markets if you can make that happen for the economy?
Well, I think one of the problems with the steel question is whether or not we've really got much of an industry left to nationalise. And of course, that's been the biggest challenge over the last few years, is actually keeping plants open. So I think it's a great idea to try and boost the economy. And I do have my own concerns over how much of our critical industries have been sold off to foreign investment. And I think that's something we do have to look at. How do we renationalise certain areas, perhaps to then reprivatise in the future? But I think it's a good sounding initiative, but what's it actually going to do to create more jobs? How are we going to get those plants back? How are we going to manufacture more again, which I think is the bigger question. Of course, we've lost so many different critical industries, from the car industry through to Sheffield Steel. And, we really need to think about job creation. It sounds great on paper, but I'd love to see some working policy and see how that's actually enacted further down the line.
Yeah, OK, Joseph, thank you so much, Joseph Robertson there from the Centre for Economic and Social Reform. Thank you. Right, let's have a quick look at the front pages of the newspapers, starting with the Eye this evening, which is reporting that the Prime Minister told rebels to put up or shut up as more ministers resigned in an effort to force him out after last week's terrible local election results. I tell you what, if I was in that cabinet and we'd had results like that and the Prime Minister walked in and said, shut up and put up, how did nobody galvanise the rest of them to form a mutiny there and then? Let's talk now to former Liberal Democrat Minister Norman Baker. Norman, thank you for joining me. Listen, you're a political man that doesn't mind speaking his mind. How would you have felt in that cabinet meeting if the Prime Minister had walked in and told everybody, just shut up or put up?
Well, I think like I said to Keir Starmer, you've got to put up, actually, because he's been dithering around for a long time. he's not been making clear where he wants to go. He's in second gear rather than top gear. And when he made a speech on Monday, was it Monday? They go so fast at the moment. Yesterday, that was supposed to be a make or break speech. It turned out to be kind of a second gear speech. He didn't say anything new. So, I'd be saying to him, for God's sake, if you want to run the country, let's do something.
And what would that look like now, though? Because he can't, Norman, get any power back now, can he? Not with cabinet members resigning and all of these MPs now going, 100 or so. We also think there's a letter of 100 that want him to stay. It's all a bit weird and ambiguous. We're not quite sure what's going on, are we? But maybe that's part of the problem. He hasn't got a handle on the comms either.
No, he hasn't. And I think that speech he was due to give on Monday was the opportunity to reassert himself after the local elections, and he failed to take it. And I said to my assessment after that was that he's past the point of no return, and it's now a question of time. But the Labour Party is in a terrible deep hole. You've got 87 people demanding he goes, and 100 people demanding he stays. There's an attempt, I think, masterminded by Wes Streeting, though you don't know that definitely, to try and force him out by a series of resignations. That's what happened to Boris Johnson, you remember. That's how he finally went through ministerial resignations. But none of it's going to work, and he's still there. And he's there as a wounded animal because he was regarded by the public at large clearly as not acceptable in the local elections last week. His stock will have diminished even further since then as a consequence of the internecine warfare in the Labour Party. So they're in a real mess because where do they go? Wes Streeting is probably less popular than he is. Andy Burnham, who is more popular, is not able to stand because Keir Starmer blocked him. So we're stuck with this wounded animal running the country with no alternative in sight. It's not a happy situation for anybody.
And Norman, just lastly, as a Liberal Democrat, how do you view your performance, your party's performance last week? Disappointing?
Not at all. No, we did very well. We did very well. We've got 4 more councils, net gain of 4 councils. We're now the biggest party in places like Newcastle upon Tyne. We're by the way Labour down to 2. We outperformed the number of councillors elected. We outperformed the Conservatives, but it's been very, we haven't heard much about it because the focus from the media has understandably been on the Labour Party falling to bits and on the novelty of the Reform and Green parties picking up seats it hadn't done before. But, it's a tortoise and the hare. We've been coming through quite quietly on the sidelines to a very strong position. But, the political landscape in Britain is most peculiar. Labour is in a terrible mess. The Conservatives had record losses last week. I mean, they lost more than half the councils they were defending. And I say they came behind us in a number of councillors. You've got Reform, who did very well, but there's obviously questions now and possible investigations into Reform over this £5 million donation to Nigel Farage. You've got Polanski for the Green Party being criticised by the Metropolitan Police, by the Red Cross, and now apparently some issue about his council tax. They're all a bit of a mess, frankly. We're doing all right, but we're very quiet and we should be louder.
Well, who knows, Norman? We might see an election that has the Party and Lib Dems have to work together in some sort of coalition. Briefly,
well, we're the two parties.
I've only got 10 seconds, Norman. Would that work?
Well, I don't know if it worked, but it's a novel idea. We're only 2 parties making real progress, so I suppose on that basis it might be possible, mightn't it?
Yeah, you were good in a coalition, I have to say. Right, more to come this hour, including this.
Breaking news, live updates, stories that matter.
From the heart of the GB newsroom to every corner of Britain, with our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
GB News bulletins are there to deliver the latest news that matters to you.
Bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From cold mornings
to warm family brunches.
From football to tennis in the car.
In the kitchen.
GB News Breakfast is there. With the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it?
We're here again.
To start your day just right. GB News Breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters. Real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's political podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's political podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
isn't it?
no,
Because the failure is
you're
the failure is
deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Live from Washington, D.C., this is GB News with the stories shaping Britain and the United States of America. Tonight, President Trump spoke exclusively to me about an embattled Prime Minister refusing to resign. Buckingham Palace is furious. His own party is rebelling. How much longer can Sir Keir Starmer hold on? I'm Bev Turner. This is The Late Show Live. Well, I'm delighted to say we had a GB News exclusive today. President Trump told me exactly where he thinks a beleaguered Prime Minister went wrong and why he's now facing an open rebellion. Royally unamused, Buckingham Palace is furious with Downing Street as they warn against the King being dragged into Sir Keir Starmer's political crisis, and questions whether today's state opening of Parliament tomorrow for us here should proceed at all. Also, this evening, cabinet collapse. 4 government ministers quit today. The number of MPs calling on the Prime Minister to resign is approaching 100, and Wes Streeting is preparing for crunch talks in Downing Street. Right now, Downing Street is looking less like a government and more like a Monty Python sketch.
I command you, as King of the Britons, to stand aside. I move for no man. So be it.
Welcome to The Late Show Live. Honestly, when you watch that sketch, I mentioned it last night, so the team dug it out today. That night ends up, are you familiar with that sketch?
I am indeed, yes.
Azim, are you familiar with that
seen it,
sketch? And he ends up getting his arms chopped off and his legs chopped off, and he's still determined to keep on fighting the Black Knight, and that's why it seems appropriate. And under normal circumstances, that might actually seem something to be admired. But right now, we're struggling with that with our Prime Minister, aren't we? Mark Albert is here with me, and also Azim Ibrahim in the studio here in Washington, D.C. Thank you, gentlemen. In London, we have our chatter of political panellists. Paul Cox is with us. We have Matt Torbett, Michelle Donnellan and Jonathan Liss. Has anyone come up with a better collective noun yet for what you lot are?
No, we're just laughing at you trying, Bev. Carry on, go on, you'll get there.
A herd, a pride. How about a pride?
Gaggle, yeah.
A pride of commentators.
A pride. Yeah, an annoyance of Jonathan List's, no doubt. That's what the inbox will say.
Bev, you
no,
love
we love
me,
you all.
come on.
We need you all here.
They don't love them all, Bev.
You know what? No, I love you the most. You give good left, Liz. That's what we say. You give excellent left.
That's what all the boys tell me, Bev.
Right. Let me quickly remind you, before it descends into absolute chaos, let me quickly remind you of tonight's big breaking news, starting with our GBNews exclusive. I knew they were all going to be very misbehaved down there. There's so many of them there tonight. So President Trump told me earlier today exactly why he thinks Sir Keir Starmer is facing an open revolt from within his own party, government and the general public. Talking to him earlier today on the phone, he told me his two biggest problems, that's Starmer's, are energy and immigration. Those are his two big problems. He should open up the North Sea immediately and get your energy running the right way, and he's got to stop, he said, illegal migration. But right now, a defiant Prime Minister is continuing to ignore growing calls to resign. A total of 4 cabinet ministers have now called on the Prime Minister to quit. They are high-profile name Jess Phillips, Alex Davis-Jones, Mayata Fanbullah and Zabir Ahmed. And later today, Wes Streeting will also reportedly sit down with the Prime Minister to confront him over the turbulence engulfing Labour and demand to know how Sir Keir Starmer plans to escape the mess. Well, ahead of today's state opening of Parliament, Buckingham Palace is also said to have voiced concerns about the King being dragged into the political crisis, with them reportedly questioning whether the event should even go ahead at all, which is rather beautifully reflected on the front page of the Sun newspaper, with the headline reading, "Crisis? What crisis?" It is a state of almost pathological denial, isn't it, as we look on here. Let me go to our rabble in London to get a reaction to what might happen tomorrow. Do you think, Paul Cox, that Starmer is politely waiting until the King's speech is completed tomorrow, and then he will make a decision and announce a timetable to step aside?
I'm not sure that Keir Starmer's politely waiting for anything. I think the King's speech is convenient for him. It's keeping everybody around him who wants to follow process kind of in line. I think that's what's happening with Streeting, but with Wes Streeting, I haven't seen, by the way, I haven't seen anyone come out and show any leadership yet. Now, I don't know enough about the Labour parliamentary process or the changing of their leader process, because we just let's face it, we've rarely seen it in our, in all of our lifetimes here. We saw Corbyn deposed just about. Tony, I don't know him, Tony Blair sort of kind of moved on whenever he wanted to move on, and Brown stepped in. And before that, well, I was born at the end of 79, so it was Margaret Thatcher. So we've never really seen this in my lifetime. But I'd like to see, if this was the Tories, right, you'd see at this point sort of a little bit more dignity, I feel. And you'd see that people, A, would be coming forward and saying this is what they want to do, this is who's going to be in their cabinet, and this is why they're going to do it. And B, it would happen relatively quickly, so you wouldn't feel like we're in this kind of a swamp that we're now in. But I don't think that the King's speech is anything other than convenient.
But can I come in there? Because I think the big difference between the Conservatives and the Labour Party is that it's much, much easier under the Conservative Party rules to get rid of a Prime Minister.
Yeah.
Because you don't need to have the numbers for a rival candidate. You just need to have the numbers to not have confidence in the Prime Minister, and then you have a vote. Because the problem is, for someone like Wes Streeting, is that he could get the numbers required for a vote, but then Starmer would automatically be on the ballot as well if he wanted to be, just much like Corbyn was in 2016 when there was a challenge from Owen Smith. Yeah, and so Starmer, and there's a very good chance, by the way, that Starmer would beat Streeting, because the number of MPs in the PLP who hate Streeting is very, very high, and they would see him as taking the Labour Party even further to the right. So a lot of them, even though they hate Starmer, would stick with Nurse for fear of worse.
And to go back to this point...
Go on.
I was going to say that the difference between the Conservatives and Labour is much more than just process, though. It is that the Conservatives are flipping ruthless when it comes to wanting to get a leader out. You know, they gun for them, and they take no prisoners. And obviously, too many times, as we saw in the last government.
Yeah, although Paul Cox did say you need some of the dignity of the Conservatives at this time of transition. I don't think that's how we saw it at the time. There didn't appear to be a huge amount of dignity, to be fair, with all of those prime ministerial handovers. But Matt, let me come to you on this. You know the main protagonists in this story better than anybody else in our panel, in our whole programme tonight. You know them personally. Who do you want to see step up, and how do they do it without alienating the rest of the Labour Party?
Well, let's not overstate it, Bev. They ring occasionally. I wouldn't say I know them that well, but they ring me up and that's what I think. No. Serious note, listen, I've been long a proponent of Andy Burnham. I know people are sort of finally jumping on the bus now, which is long awaited. I think purely from a tactical point of view, he's from outside the building and therefore can't be tied to much of the unpopular decisions the government have made up to now. In fact, he's probably critiqued most of them. He's the only, I think he's actually the only politician in the country that has a consistent net favourability in the positives at a +4. When you look at Keir Starmer as a -50, Nigel Farage at a -30, is just endless at the moment. And I think he's someone that comes across as people can trust. So the problem for Andy Burnham is twofold. He's got to find a seat. I think we've done that today. That's all I'm going to say for now. And I think the National Executive Committee...
What do you mean by that? I mean, so hang on. Just let me pull you back on that a little bit. So you think that there is an MP in a safe Labour seat who's prepared to stand aside and parachute him in?
Well, I don't think there is a safe Labour seat at the moment. I think there may be safe Andy Burnham seats where he would go down very well on the ballot compared to the Labour Party brand. But no, Andy Burnham was in the capital today. He's met with individual that, as you would expect him to, as Mayor of Greater Manchester, meet with MPs occasionally to sort of nail down a constituency for when the time feels right.
Do you know for sure that he did it?
We'll say again. I've got two ears here. What's going on?
Who did he meet with?
Oh, Bev, come on, I'm not just going to give you that on a platter,
can I ask you a question? Do you know that he's found an MP?
Hang on, Jonathan, shush a minute. Hang on, Jonathan, shush a minute. Right, Matthew, or that way. Yeah, that way. This is too good. Matthew, so just let's hypothetically, the safest sort of Labour seat that might like Andy Burnham is going to be either in Greater Manchester or it's going to be in Liverpool, correct?
Yes, in the northwest of the country.
Yeah. So maybe we can, between us, try and work out which MP might be prepared to stand aside and let Andy Burnham go and take that seat. Paul Cox, get on ChatGPT and work this out, would you? I don't want to treat you like my secretary, but if you could just have a quick look.
He doesn't mind.
Then we can all get a bet on and work out what it might be. Because that, but joking apart, Matt, even if that does happen, hypothetically, and I too like Andy Burnham, to be honest, he's one of the most straightforward politicians I've ever met, but if that does happen, that is not quick. That is what, a 3 to 4 month time scale to make that happen? You're looking at some time after the summer?
No, I think if you look at, say an MP resigns tomorrow, absolutely derails the King's speech, it'll go down like a cup of cold sick. But just for instance' sake, you'll move the writ the following week in Parliament. I know it's all going rather well. You'll move the writ in Parliament likely the following week, and the by-election could take place in 4 weeks' time. Now, we had a deputy leadership contest over 6 weeks in the Labour Party more recently, so it should be down to the NEC and likely the Labour Party chairman, Anna Turley, to set a timetable. There's no reason why we couldn't finish it off at conference, let Keir sail on and write his own obituary about how he got us back into government and Liz Truss didn't put it on a platter for him, and we'll ignore that bit. But it could be done as long or as short as you would like in instance. But what I will say is, look, it's also not easy. Andy Burnham may be seen as somebody that's taking a constituency for granted, and therefore voters may not wish to be just his doormat for that time being. So it's got to be handled very carefully, and the National Executive Committee also have to sign it off, because if you are a mayor, as we've seen already with Andy Burnham, you have to apply for special permission from the committee to able to stand, just even put yourself forward as a candidate, not even be the candidate, just to apply. So I think he's got about 5 out of the 10.
Isn't there a problem? Matt, isn't there the huge problem here that the NEC is still dominated by Starmer loyalists, and Starmer, they are not going to let Burnham back in any more than they did a couple of months ago when he tried to go go for Gordon and Denton. So surely there will have to be some kind of pact between Starmer and Burnham to guarantee Burnham's re-entry, because otherwise it'll have to be, you let me back in and I'll let you go with your dignity, because otherwise Streeting is going to, if Streeting sees that Burnham's not going to go back in, then Streeting will go, and then Rayner will see that Burnham's not going to be back in, so Rayner will go as kind of like the Burnham substitute, or Miliband will go in, and so basically the stop Streeting candidate. So I mean, could that be some kind of, maybe Starmer would rather have Burnham in than Rayner or Streeting? Do you think maybe that?
But also there's the fact that Starmer will recognise that he can't have his people block Burnham a second time, that would be catastrophic for him, and that would be the end anyway. So I do think that he's going to have to recognise that this time.
Well, do not underestimate the right of the Labour Party and wanting to have one last embarrassment of a popular politician on the centre-left. Don't put that past them at all. No, there's been internal meetings within the National Executive Committee, one of which was reported yesterday, and a well-known Starmer loyalist said, I think we're going to have to start looking at people like Andy Burnham because this is now terminal for the Labour Party. So I think people are coming round to the idea. It would be terrible optics for them to do so, and it looks petty. But you can't take anything for granted, and I think it will be, the wheels are in motion. Let's wait and see what happens.
OK, all right, thank you guys. I'm going to bring in my panel here in America for now. This King's speech tomorrow, this opening of Parliament, it's going to be so dramatically overshadowed by events around the Prime Minister. It beggars belief. I can't get over it I understand it on a political level, but I can't get over on a personal level how Keir Starmer's got the thickest skin to be in that room tomorrow, knowing how unpopular he is.
Yeah.
And who's got him in a headlock? Like, who would do that?
Yeah, and it's most unfortunate they've actually put the sovereign in such a situation.
Yeah.
It's particularly after the King had such a successful trip to the United States. You know, he was literally shining across the world stage, and now he's going to be giving a speech about my Prime Minister is going to do this, my government is going to do that, knowing full well that it could be changed within a matter of days. So I think it's most unfortunate they've actually put the King in a situation, and the King, obviously being the loyal patriot that he is, will go through the motions, but it's hugely embarrassing in fact to just watch this.
I know, Azim, obviously you live here in Washington DC, as do you, Mark, but as our token American tonight on this very British show, how aware are people in DC, would you say, of what's going on politically in the UK at the moment?
There are three major headlines in DC and America today, and with all due respect to my British friends, this is not one of the three.
Yeah.
President Trump is going to a very high-profile trip to China. This is going to be across all the newspapers and all the newscasts tomorrow. A lot writing on this meeting. Number two, today, economy poll came out. Donald Trump hit his highest disapproval on the economy ever, 70%. 70% of Americans disapprove of the economy. The other numbers that came out today, which were not great, highest inflation rate in 3 years, 3.8%. Those are the three headlines.
Yeah.
This, unfortunately, with all due respect, is not one of them. It's not a good thing when Britain is divided. It's not good for the U.S., it's not good for Britain, and vice versa. It's not good for Britain when the U.S. is seen as paralyzed or divided either. They both need each other to be strong.
I must say, when I was in the White House today, there were a few international journalists, one of the Venezuelan guys and a couple of the South American journalists down there, who kind of see me and go, whew, your country's in a bit of trouble. What's going on over there? But there's a sort of vague understanding that the Prime Minister is on the ropes. What impression are you getting here?
Same thing. I think I've spoken to a few people. They know about the election results, the council election, Starmer's on the ropes. But I think that's the extent of their knowledge, to be honest. People don't just follow it as close. But the reality is, Bev, as you've indicated today, the most important person actually seems to have diagnosed the problems in the UK extremely well. So I think that's definitely a positive for the UK.
So that's being President Trump saying that we have to sort out our energy and our immigration.
Yeah, two
and
most
he's
important
just distilled
problems.
it down to those two issues. And yet, I'm trying to think, in the speech yesterday, I don't think, which was meant to save Starmer's skin and his career, he didn't mention migration once. Did he? I can't think. Did he talk about energy? No, he didn't, did he? In the same way? I don't think he did yesterday.
No, I think they've realised that the Labour Party is probably quite ungovernable now. Remember, Starmer tried to do something on immigration and there was pushback, and what they're doing now is just tinkering around.
Yeah.
They tried to do something on welfare with the two-child benefit cap, and that was also just tinkering around, had to be in reverse. So whomsoever actually takes over as leader is actually probably going to come to the realisation that despite having this huge majority, that the party has essentially become ungovernable, and this is why nothing actually gets done.
Yeah. Well, in his speech yesterday, he talked about, didn't he? Talked about diversity is our strength again. He used that line that he does, and he talked about banning people from going to the UK this weekend for the Unite the Kingdom march. Several Americans who aren't allowed to go from here. I mean, you know, it was, and putting England back in the centre of the EU, that was it. That went down like a cup of cold sick, to use the analogy we've heard already tonight. Right, let's talk now to journalist and broadcaster Candice Holsworth. Candice, thank you for joining us this evening. So it's a very busy time in Westminster. What happens tomorrow, particularly with the King's speech? Will it be completely and utterly overshadowed by Keir Starmer's stubbornness?
I think it will, but knowing Starmer, he will just tough it out. He's a process guy, and he's challenged all these people who are going for him to follow the process, and he's hoping that they're all just so factionally divided that they won't be able to come together behind one candidate, which is what they need to do to trigger a leadership election, a leadership competition. So contest, you're right. A leadership contest. And so I mean, it's what, first of all, everyone sort of thought it would be Wes Streeting, but then others have said no, they want Andy Burnham. Some have even said Angela Rayner or Ed Miliband. So there's quite a lot of divide going on, and I think Starmer's just sort of hoping that they can't all unite. He is going to have this big showdown tomorrow with Wes Streeting. I think whatever the outcome, though, whether or not Wes Streeting backs off or sort of advances, I do think that this is still going to be a zombie government. I think that they're after the results of the local elections, all the authority was sort of stripped away from Starmer, and I don't think he'll be in power in name only.
And Candice, out of those candidates, and we are going to hear the word contest a lot, aren't we, in the next few weeks, there's no doubt about it, but out of those candidates, be it Andy Burnham, Ed Miliband, Angela Rayner, Wes Streeting, which of them would Starmer want, or will he not care once he's gone and joined his globalist organisation that he'll go and work for? Will he not care who takes that position?
Yeah. You know, it's very unclear where Starmer himself sits. I mean, people who've known him a long time have said that he is actually a man of the left, but they knew that the election that they won was a loveless landslide, and they sort of had to move to where the public were, because I think they knew straight away that there would be a problem with legitimacy, and he has acknowledged this. He knows why people got so unhappy with Labour so quickly, because they won in a very weird election. The issue would be that anyone who follows, if Labour sort of follow their instincts now and lurch to the left, they would also have a legitimacy problem, because I don't think that's where the mood of the country is now. Look at what happened in the local elections. It's a rightward shift, not a leftward shift. And I do know that the IEA has been doing a lot of polling and trying to figure out where the public is in terms of spending, or how much welfare should be cut, or how much taxes should be raised. People are dead set against raising taxes. They want to cut welfare, and they want the state to play less of a role in their lives. So I think that any of those candidates who want to challenge him for the leadership, none of them would meet the public where they are.
Yeah, because you've identified, I think, what we saw in the speech yesterday morning, Candice, was that it was a speech for his backbenchers. It was a speech for those on the left of the party, which is why it failed to land with the general public, and particularly with our GBNews viewers, let's say, and guests and contributors. We were all baffled and bemused why you could come out and deliver a speech that talks about putting the UK back in the centre of Europe. And then the light bulb went on, and you realise, actually, he was talking to his own party members. But if that appeals to his party members, that party will not appeal to the electorate at the next election. Candice, thank you so much for joining me. Candice Holdsworth there, as we look at the front door there of number 10. I don't think Starmer's going to come out in his pyjamas anytime soon, but let's just Think about what might be going on behind those doors tonight. What decisions are they making about his future? More speculation from us in just a minute. Still to come this evening on The Late Show Live.
Well, here in Downing Street, number 10 sources reportedly saying the Prime Minister is growing increasingly confident that he's seen off any leadership challenges. But he's meeting the Health Secretary here tomorrow. Is Wes Streeting about to fire the starting gun on a leadership contest?
From court mornings
to warm family brunches,
from football to tennis, in the car,
in the kitchen.
GB News Breakfast is there with the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it?
We're here again to start your day just right. GB News Breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, Dave. I'm so surprised. I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Tom Harwood. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Streeting, do you want to be Prime Minister? Wes Streeting, are you measuring the curtains? Do you want the case to number 10, Mr. Streeting?
Well, that was today. Brace yourselves, because Health Secretary Wes Streeting is heading for a crunch showdown, we believe, with Sir Keir Starmer later today, as the Prime Minister barely clings on to power. This was footage from today, but they've got another meeting tomorrow. Nearly 100 Labour MPs publicly have demanded by now that he quit. The Times is also tonight reporting that Ed Miliband has told Cabinet colleagues that he will challenge Wes Streeting, as he is keen to see the return of Manchester Mayor Andy Burnham, though the Energy Secretary's team has denied that. Oh, my word. Right, let me go to my panel in London first of all, and then we're going to go to a new guest in the studio here. Let me go to my panel. Given that we heard President Trump say today that the problem with the UK is that we haven't got a handle on our energy, as soon as Ed Miliband swims into the picture, Paul Cox, I get very nervous about the direction of travel of this new look Labour Party and what it could be. What are your thoughts about Miliband honing into view?
Look, we're Ofcom regulated, so it's not possible for me to share all of my views on Edward Miliband, but I don't think that he would make a great Prime Minister, and his net zero zealotry does worry me somewhat. Donald Trump, obviously, you spoke to him this afternoon. I assume that was WhatsApp. Was it, Bev? How do you just call...
Old school.
How do you call Donald Trump?
Paul, don't you know that's what all the journalists just call him up and he answers the phone and they speak to him for 5 minutes?
No, it's his Bev, it's special.
I think you'll find it's not all the journalists, Jonathan List. It's not all of them. But yeah, I literally put a couple of eggs on to boil this morning in the pan, and I thought I'll just try him whilst I wait for my eggs to boil. And I just rang him, and he picked up and went hello, and I said hello.
That's impressive. Very impressive.
That is amazing.
It's Bev Turner from GBNews. It is amazing, but it's not amazing from my point of view. But it's amazing that is how transparent he is. It is amazing. It makes our Downing Street look. It makes, frankly, Michelle, it makes your politicians. It makes you all look paranoid. Can you imagine Starmer's phone number knocking around? Why wouldn't they do that? In fact, let me ask you, Michelle. Why wouldn't they do that?
Well, I suppose there is a capacity point if they were answering the phone to every Tom, Dick and Harry. I'm not saying you're a Tom, a Dick or a Harry, but I'm just saying that there would be a limit. But it is in contrast to, I won't name names, but some of our former Prime Ministers, one in particular, they didn't even reply to WhatsApps.
Name names.
Well, they wouldn't even reply to WhatsApps from cabinet colleagues in their own cabinet. So,
is that Boris Johnson?
That is, I'm not going to go into who it is, but I'm just saying that it is in contrast.
On, Michelle. You're not with them anymore. You can throw the mud at them now. You'll be a member of the Reform Party before long, so you might as well tell us the truth.
I'm still a Conservative. No.
Yeah, but there is something just wonderfully old-fashioned, Matt, about the fact that journalists in this town have the president's phone number, and we can ring. You don't have to go through, all the rigmarole and the hoops you have to jump through, and the curation of who's going to ask him what, Matt. Wouldn't you like to live in a UK like that?
Me? No, I'd hate it, particularly if I worked for the individual. I couldn't think of anything worse. Some of the MPs I've worked for, you won't want them speaking to anybody. There's a whole point of a comms officer and a spokesperson. So I couldn't think of anything worse, actually, Bev. Donald Trump can conduct himself as he wishes. Don't let anyone bring it over here.
Bev, can I
Go on,
kind of be there?
Jonathan.
Just to poo-poo this a little bit. Trump loves client journalists, and what he loves is a system where he develops this. I'm not talking about you personally, but all the journalists in Washington who do have this relationship with him, that they are able to. They get so excited when Trump feeds them some tidbits that they kind of then are much more inclined to sort of follow the line that he wants, because they know that he can also cut off that access to them directly. So there's no mediation then. It's a direct relationship between a journalist and Donald Trump. And so what you find, I think it's part of the problem with Trump, is that you have this completely unhinged behaviour that happens separately from the main action, such as last night, where he tweeted or posted on Truth Social 60 times some of the most extraordinary conspiracy theories about Obama sort of taking $120 million bribes from Obamacare, retweeting fake Charlie Kirk accounts, sort of just the most sort of boomer AI slop, retweeting it sort of 60 times over the course of the night. And in ordinary times, that would just be such an extraordinary, bizarre thing to have happened that it would have been wall-to-wall media coverage. But because it's Trump, and because he does have this sort of client-journalist relationships, that he doesn't even get any sort of mention. Just as today, where he said that he doesn't care about Americans' financial situation at all, that would have been a career-ending moment for any president. But in this president, it just gets glossed over.
But it's not about client journalism, because literally that briefing room is just full of journalists from every single organisation around the world, hard left, further right, and everybody has that access to some degree. It's not curated. It's the polar opposite of that. They're so transparent across the board. Like Matt says, it's probably a nightmare for the comms department. But I think they would say, Paul, well, if you know what you stand for, you know what you believe in, you don't have to have your messaging constantly curated, because you're always saying the same thing. You're not blowing in the wind. You're not flip-flopping depending on what you think the press want to hear that day.
Flip-flopping, Ben.
Well, Donald Trump is unique. Donald Trump is unique, isn't he? And I'm sure he doesn't have advisors around him telling him what to do, but because I'm sure if they tried doing that, then they'd get sort of swiftly moved along. But I think it's refreshing. All the conventional things that we hear about and that Jonathan was alluding to, we understand. It's all very neat, and we have to do this, and you've got to do that, and all the other. And I think the thing that people like about Donald Trump is his character, that he feels a little bit more connected with the normal person. As crazy as that might seem, because obviously Donald Trump, Liz has now got his head in his hands.
That's nothing that he did is normal.
Jonathan, Donald Trump and you are 99% similar. There's very little to separate.
We've got 99% of the same genetic material as a fruit fly, Paul. Doesn't say anything. But there's nothing. I have nothing in common with that man.
Voice.
Yes,
you have a lot in common.
Well, that's one thing that we all have in common.
You like the sound of your own voice. He likes the sound of his own voice. You like the sound of your own voice. You believe in what you say, regardless if people think you're right or not.
That's
you believe
true.
in what you
Fair
say,
enough,
and so does he. There's a true authenticity about you, Jonathan Liss, whether people like it or not. And there is a true authenticity about President Trump, whether you like it or not. You know where you stand with people like you, and that's what's so refreshing about him as a president, is people know where they stand with him.
Yes,
I don't buy this. He's erratic, he's unpredictable. No, is it predictability? Yeah, sometimes you are terrifying. Our inbox will agree with that. But actually, there is something incredibly predictable about him and you, and that is no bad thing. Matthew Torbit, we were speculating as to which safe seat Andy Burnham could be looking to steal from beneath its current sitting MP.
Steal?
And our enormous team of 1,000 people, in fact, just one producer, Evan, has been looking into this for me, and we think it might be Bootle. And the current Labour MP is Peter Dowd. Can you confirm or deny, Matt Torbit, that Bootle and Peter Dowd is the seat upon which Andy Burnham is going to land?
Bootle is certainly a seat that was in play. You'll see from earlier in the week, though, Peter Dowd said he didn't want to get into all that when he was questioned by a reporter in the week, which sort of left the door open. Peter Dowd then quickly followed up the day after to say he's definitely not standing down. So you'll have to go on Peter Dowd with that one, I'm afraid, Bev.
Why do you think Bootle, Bev?
OK, so... Well, I don't know. I have to ask Evan. He's been busy looking this up for me. This is the research of the team in London, the one guy in London. It's a Labour stronghold, apparently, in the northwest, because it has to be a Labour stronghold. It's such a risky strategy, Michelle, isn't it? To think, let's find a seat and let's put Andy Burnham in it, because he might lose, and then what?
I don't think it is risky, to be honest, as long as it is a seat within that Greater Manchester area where he's got a strong base, and especially at the time now that we're in, because he'll get the sort of anti-Starmer vote and that momentum. So I think it's a sure thing if it's him standing. It'd be a totally different kettle of fish if it was somebody else, given where the Labour Party are at the moment. But I actually think it's a pretty safe bet for him to go forward into the right seat.
I wonder, apparently they've had 8 decades of dominance in Bootle, the Labour Party, Paul Cox. But what do you think would happen, Paul? Let's just use our imagination. If Andy Burnham, if this guy does step down, Peter Dowd, and Andy Burnham stands, who goes up against him? I mean, crikey, can you imagine what Reform would throw at that as a by-election?
I think, I don't know Bootle well enough, but I know Bootle's within Liverpool, and I don't know how many local councils went anywhere near Reform in Liverpool. I know Manchester did, extraordinary result for Reform in Manchester, but I always see Liverpool as an ecosystem where they essentially see themselves as non-English. They align with anything but England. They align with anything than sort of the establishment of England. So I think that would be a pretty safe city for someone like Burnham to stand. But it doesn't rule out the Greens. But we often talk about the Greens taking from Labour. It's actually Reform that are taking from Labour, because no self-respecting old-school Labour voter is voting for Zach Polanski and the Greens. They don't stand for anything working class, nothing whatsoever. It's for the sort of young, ill of mind, and the Islamists, as far as I can figure out. I mean, that's I don't think that's the official line.
Silly.
That's not strictly true. The Labour Party have bled to the left and to the right.
But what I would say is that Andy Burnham, I hadn't thought about this a great deal until the last couple of days, but I think Andy Burnham maybe stands a chance in one of the... I've got all the North West, I've got all the Greater Manchester, Merseyside, Chester Labour MPs in front of me here. I've actually shared them on Your Say so people can speculate if they like. I will keep asking Matthew.
When I asked you to be my secretary, a little earlier, Paul, you actually did go away and do the job.
You started whatever you ask him, Bev. You know
Bev,
that.
I will do anything you ask.
We'll walk on hot coals for you.
You need to learn a thing or two, Jonathan, less about that. Right.
I'm my own man.
Okay,
you know that.
Let me. You and Donald Trump, you have a lot in common. Right, let me go to my guest here in the studio now. I'm delighted to say I'm joined by a reporter for Reason magazine, Reem Ibrahim, is in the studio with me. Not Azim Ibrahim, who's just gone, made way for Reem Ibrahim. Reem, good to see you again. Right, we thought that Starmer might do the decent thing this morning, stand behind the lectern outside number 10, say goodbye. Transitional period. He hasn't done it. Were you surprised he didn't? And what is he going to do now?
I was surprised that he didn't go, but I've got to say, when you look at the list of people that did call for his resignation, none of them were particularly senior, except for I think it was 2 cabinet ministers in the end. I mean, Jess Phillips then resigning, saying, nope, he's got to go. Again, it wasn't any of the key figures in the ministerial cabinet. Now, this is usually what happens when we see resignations, except for when it's been the Conservative Party, it's happened far more quickly. You know, within the space of a day, you have a couple of backbench MPs, then you have cabinet ministers, and then you have some of the senior sort of big wigs, the Home Secretary, the Foreign Secretary. Those are people that you really worry about.
Yeah.
At the moment, all we've had is some chief whips and some relatively junior cabinet ministers, which has not triggered what within the Labour Party constitution requires, which is a vote of no confidence. So we are probably not going to see it. Now, if we do see Keir Starmer resign, I'm not necessarily optimistic, Bev. I think that we are probably going to see somebody far, far worse than what we've already got under Keir Starmer. Now, remember, we've had 14 years of Conservative government where we've seen the highest tax burden since the Second World War. Keir Starmer's Labour Party have taken over government, and we have now seen the highest tax burden in British history. British people are fed up of the way in which the economy is being run, the fact that 25% of working age people are out of work. All of these economic problems are compounding. And then you have a party in power that does not seem to care about the British public and indeed the British people and what it means to be hardworking. So all of those factors are in play. Every other potential candidate that could replace Keir Starmer would undoubtedly be so much worse. But there is the argument to be made that perhaps things need to get worse before they get better.
You, with your libertarian hat on, with your eye on civil liberties, etc., and you and I very much share our concerns on those issues. When you look at the people waiting in the wings, Angela Rayner, Andy Burnham, Wes Streeting, who, Ed Miliband, God forbid, who makes you least nervous of those lot?
It's a really good question. Honestly, Angela Rayner makes me the least nervous. And the reason why I say that is because she has publicly shown that she is willing to be a sort of real person. You know, we've seen photos of her vaping, the fact that she's like, yeah, I like to go on holiday, I like to go clubbing. I do think that that is quite attractive in a candidate, but all of her policy proposals, everything that she has touched in government has been very, very regulatory and very, very stringent. So out of all of the personalities, I would say Angela Rayner is probably the most real, but that does not mean that any of these people will be better than Keir Starmer, or indeed that any of these people will do what needs to be done to make sure that Britain is free.
I also want to go back and have a look where each of them sat when it came to lockdown policies, when it came to vaccine mandates, vaccine passports. They were all supportive. Did any of them swim against the tide at all during that period of time, do you think?
Well, none of the key candidates. There were, of course, some backbench Labour MPs. I believe people like Graham Stringer were quite against some of the really restrictive and draconian lockdown measures. The mask mandates that had basically no evidence or scientific backing towards them, but it was all about control. But Bev, this is really the problem with politics. Politicians will always want to be seen to be doing good stuff, and therefore a lot of the time that ends up being restrictions, regulations, bans, and more often than not, the British public support it.
I'm so glad you used that word control, because you've reminded me actually of an anecdote about Keir Starmer, and whenever I'm confused about who the Prime Minister is, I come back to this particular anecdote. Do you remember when he was asked by a journalist, in relation to the National Health Service. And they said to him, if you had a family member who was going to die, was very ill, I'm paraphrasing, but very, very ill, and their life could be saved by using private health care, would you? And he said no. And I remember falling off my chair nearly while I was presenting Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce that morning, and being so shocked that as a human being, if you had access to pay for your family member to live, that you would put your ideology and your pathological belief in the NHS above your loved one surviving. And it's never lost me, that story, because I think it told me so much about who he is as a man. What do we draw from that anecdote, do you think, Reem, in terms of what we're seeing today?
I think you're so right, and I think that what we can draw from that particular response to that question is that actually the idea that the state, or indeed the socialised healthcare system in this particular instance, but the state apparatus that Sir Keir Starmer is in, the idea that that particular system is the be-all and end-all is something that he is willing to literally die for, or indeed risk his loved one's lives to die for. And I think that tells us a lot about him as a person and the way that he views political calculation. It's the idea that no matter what, my ideological perspective that the government is good, big government is good, that socialised healthcare in this instance is good, my ideological commitment to that idea means that I reject logic. So even in this particular situation, he might be saying, well, my God, you know, all of these backbench Labour MPs, some of my cabinet ministers are calling for my resignation, but you know what? My commitment to the cause means that I will stick it out, no matter how painful it is.
And the shocking lack of humanity therein. That's what I remember. And when you talk about Angela Rayner raving in a field, you see, actually, you do see humanity. You do see human normal.
Do you agree with me?
I do see what you mean by that. You see normal human behaviour which prizes the liberty of the individual to dance around with a bottle of beer in your hand, even if you're like a bit of a wally, you don't really care. And that actually is quite appealing in these buttoned up times. Reem, thank you so much for joining us. See you on the show next week, no doubt. Right, let's speak now to another American Republican communications strategist. TJ McCormack joins me now. Hello, TJ. Great to see you. I was asking my American guests this evening, or guests that live here in DC, how concerned are American people at the moment about what's happening with Prime Minister Starmer? In fact, do they have any idea about the chaos down at Westminster?
The people that are in the know. And I think first we're fascinated. First, there's that little bit of translation. You know, it's a prime minister, not a president. It's you know, all the steps that have to go into removing a prime minister or a party leader. The differences between the fact that there's different rules for the different parties is fascinating. I think we're concerned because, you know, there are some global issues afoot, and Starmer finally allowed the support of the Royal Navy and allowed us to use air bases from time to time. So, you know, there are some stuff we have to there's some things we have to accomplish. President Trump is leading, and it's good to know that we'll have some stability at some point with our oldest, closest ally.
Yeah, let me just ask you then a little question about the situation here in America at the moment. Some bad polling results today that we heard from Mark Halbert mentioned just before. The president is on his way to China as we speak. Now, a very important few days with Xi Jinping. How important is it going to be to the American people how this trip goes when he's got so much to deal with here at home?
Yeah, you know, it does come. It's a big trip at a big time while he's got a lot of plates spinning here and around the world. And I say here, you know, obviously his home base at the White House and the Pentagon, etc. You know, but yet the guy is a multitasker, and I think he's getting a little frustrated not getting out and about. So yeah, no, we're definitely paying attention. I think we'd like to finally, once and for all, people are constantly talking about the growing threat from China. And, you know, it's going to be interesting to watch the whole world put Trump and this visit under a microscope. And for people like myself, I'm confident, and I know that we've got a real, true, honest-to-goodness leader. Polls be damned. This is a guy, to your point, I was great programming all day long here on GB News, by the way, and watching you and your panel and guests. The conversation has been fantastic, and to some of the points made, Jonathan in particular, he just doesn't care about the polling. He cares about the people. He cares about getting results. The way he went about closing the border was not particularly popular. It wasn't pretty at first, but oh my goodness, it's one of the things that people, even Democrats and leftists, grudgingly agree. Yeah, it had to be done, and he did it. So he's out there on a day with weird polling and a big trip ahead. He's going to go and he's going to represent the United States of America with a big navy blue suit and a big red tie, and he's going to shake that hand of that guy and let him know that the United States is right in front of him.
Okay, TJ, thank you so much. It's going to be fascinating to watch the next few days with events in China. We're going to be torn between, do we watch China, do we watch Westminster? It's going to be politically an
Oh, I'm going to be staring at your static shot of 10 Downing Street. That's what I'm watching. I'm watching that shot.
Thank you, TJ. So are we watching the door. The cat's been out, I think, this evening, and then the cat will come back in again.
Yeah, the cleaners will be there in a few hours, and then the milkman. This is great stuff. I love it. I really do love it.
Thank you so much. Okay, let's have a look again at some of the front pages of the papers, shall we, from tomorrow. Guess what? It's all the same. Daily Mail, paralysed by Labour chaos. They are saying here, inside story of the night, Sir Keir decided they'd have to drag him out of number 10. Obviously, the Mail going very big on this story. They're reporting Keir Starmer was locked in an extraordinary standoff, and he still is, with his own MPs as the repercussions grow. I'm delighted to say I'm still joined in the studio, or back in the studio now, Chief Strategy Officer at the New Lines Institute, Azim Ibrahim, and journalist and founder of media advisory experts, Mark Albert. You know what, just because we got a little minute, tell our audience, what does your organisation do? And then I want to hear from you as well, because people go, oh, I wonder what they do.
Sure. So the New Lines Institute is a think tank based here in Washington, DC. We've been going for about 7 years. We do high impact policy to essentially cater to the United States. So work on a lot of different issues, on the Western Balkans, Central Asia, and probably the most effective one that we've done in which we've actually changed government policy is a terrible topic on genocide and mass atrocities. So our report on the Uyghur genocide, for example, was the one that was used by the State Department to make a genocide determination.
In China?
In China, and I met with Secretary Pompeo myself to brief him and the legal scholars. So it's a small boutique kind of think tank, but we do quite high impact policy work.
Fascinating. And Mark, how about you?
So at Media Advisory Experts, we give people their voice back. We train them how to be experts for journalists, how to be a resource for journalists, how to give a TED Talk, how to do public speaking, how to create your unique origin story, because everyone has a story.
Have you heard of a man called Keir Starmer?
Well, here's my phone number.
If he'd only had you all along, he might be all right. In terms of the comms, though, I mean, when you watch what's happened here in the UK, Mark, it's been a sort of disaster, I think, from a messaging point of view. Starmer's speech yesterday, talking to his party, not talking to the people. It's difficult at a time like this, isn't it, to know who your audience is?
So forgive me for giving advice to the PM. I'm sure they have a lot.
Oh no, don't worry, everyone is.
Okay, great. So I'll be in good company. So at the heart of one's origin story is how you make an emotional connection with the audience. You can do logic, facts, but as the TED Talk coach of the stars himself, John Bates, says, you will not make a connection unless you make an emotional one. So right now, the PM, the team, what is the emotional connection, if any, that they're making with Britons? And if they're not making an emotional connection, all the logic in the world is not going to work. You can cite all these stats and all these plans that have been done, but until you make that emotional connection, you tell that emotional story, you resonate with the people of Great Britain, you're going to have a limited effect.
You have pretty much summed up the problem with Starmer, though. It goes to circle back to what I was just talking to Reem about, and the complete lack of humanity. He's never made an emotional connection with the public.
Yeah, and the reason for that, Bev, is that Starmer, as I've indicated, indicated he doesn't actually stand for anything. He was. I actually did a report when Starmer was opposition leader on the prospective foreign policy of Keir Starmer. It was published by the Henry Jackson Society. Right. I looked at all of Starmer's speeches. I looked at his presentations, everything. Tried to deduce what a foreign policy of Starmer would look like, and the conclusion I came to was that there is no Starmerism. He was driven purely by oppositional politics, and whatever the polls are saying, whichever is going. So he didn't have an underlying political philosophy.
So what do you make of what Neil Oliver was saying at the start of the show, though, that when you look at him historically as a student and when he was coming up through law, etc., that he was the Trotskyist of the Trotskyists? Do you not recognise that definition?
No, I don't think so. I think that may have been the case back then, but he obviously tried to move to the centre, more Blairite foundation. But the reality is, he doesn't actually stand for anything, and he was just being pushed around by the polls, U-turning here and there, and he didn't have a political philosophy as a foundation.
Fascinating. Right, let me go to my panel in London as well. What with collective nouns have we used so far?
Pride, gaggle.
Shall we think of another one?
A rash. That's what I still stand by a rash.
A rash.
A resignation.
You still stand by a rash. No, well, hopefully not within the hour anyway. But listen, this conversation that we've been having, that we just had with Room and with the guys here as well, about the idea that Keir Starmer's problem is that he couldn't connect emotionally to people, and that anecdote that I told about him saying that he basically said even if a loved one was going to die and he could afford private healthcare, he would still use the NHS. That was the most telling insight into the psychology of that man, and it's never left me because it made my blood run cold. How does he, Michelle, or do you recognise that definition of him as just frankly not ever been able to make human connection with anybody?
Yeah, and I think he's fundamentally out of touch, and that's why we've seen policies that you'd sit back and you say, why on earth would you go after people's grannies? Why would you go after the farmers? This makes absolutely no logical sense from an electoral point of view and also from a human point of view. But he doesn't have the political antennae, does he? He isn't a leader, if we're honest. He's a middle manager. He comes across as one. He comes across as very robotic. He tried to do that speech. He rolled up his sleeves. He took off his tie. And yet he went out and read it off an auto cue. And it was hollow in terms of actual policy and appeal. So he's not in touch. And he hasn't got the charisma and persona. So you've got this whole combination of things, and he hasn't surrounded himself by the people that can fill those holes, which is the good sign of a leader, and he should have recognised his own weaknesses.
Yeah, Matt, your assessment of that, of who he is as a person, and also maybe we just move it forward a bit actually, because he's probably in the final death throes of his premiership, but which of the candidates waiting in the wings has the most recognisable humanity that can connect with the public?
Well, a good question really, isn't it, I suppose. I think we're being slightly unfair. I think Keir Starmer is someone that cares. I just think he has a very funny way of showing that and is unable to show it. That's part of the problem. Therefore, people feel he's quite cold. I've always had a theory of my own, but Keir Starmer doesn't seem willing to talk about it, so I'm not going to go into it on air. But he lacks that connection. He struggles socially. There's the famous line when he was running to be leader. He went to Stranger's Bar. His aides took him down. And they said, "You must go to the bar. And you've got to, press the flesh with people and do that side of things." After 2 hours, he left and he turned to Chris Ward, who's now one of his ministers, and said, "Don't ever make me do that ever again." Like, he doesn't do the social. He finds it uncomfortable. Who's the most... I think Angela Rayner is someone that's quite emotional. I think Andy Burnham is somebody that connects. I think they're probably the two I'd say that stand out. I think Wes Streeting probably has his moments, but there's nobody that I suppose people could connect to.
All right, we've still got a whole nother hour of this. More to come, including this.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pearce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News. Bold.
They are under no illusion.
Brave.
Are you a human trafficker?
Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get us on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What I'm going to do now is they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From court mornings
to warm family brunches,
from football to tennis in the car,
in the kitchen.
GB News Breakfast is there with the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it?
We're here again.
To start your day just right. GB News Breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off-limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah,
as I say,
now you've lost it. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Live from Washington, D.C., this is Bev Turner on GB News with the stories shaping Great Britain and the United States of America. Tonight, President Trump spoke exclusively to me on the phone about an embattled Prime Minister refusing to resign. We now understand that Buckingham Palace is also furious. Starmer's own party is rebelling. How much longer can Sir Keir Starmer hold on to the top job? I'm Bev Turner. This is The Late Show Live. GB News exclusive for you tonight. President Trump told me this afternoon, actually this morning, where he thinks a beleaguered Prime Minister went wrong and why he's now facing an open rebellion. Royally unamused, Buckingham Palace is furious with Downing Street as they warn against the King being dragged into Sir Keir Starmer's political crisis and questions about whether today's state opening of Parliament should proceed at all. Also tonight, Cabinet starting to collapse. 4 government ministers have quit today. The number of MPs calling on the Prime Minister to resign is approaching 100, and Wes Streeting, the Health Minister, is preparing for what are being described as crunch talks tomorrow. Right now, Downing Street looks less like a government and more like a Monty Python sketch.
I command you, as King of the Britons, to stand aside. I move for no man. So be it.
Keir Starmer is the Black Knight there. Welcome back to The Late Show Live. Joining me this evening in Washington, my panel, Chief Strategy Officer at the New Lines Institute, Azim Ibrahim, and journalist and broadcaster Mark Albert. And in London, they've written it's a superstar political panel. I'm not sure I entirely agree with that definition, but of course I do. GBNews contributor Paul Cox, journalist and broadcaster Jonathan Liss, Matthew Torbett and Michelle Donnellan. We have rolled out the big guns tonight, ladies and gentlemen, because history is in the making. And tonight, the American ambassador in London has waded into the political turmoil facing Sir Keir Starmer. He's continuing to ignore calls to resign. Speaking to broadcasters, Warren Stevens has said that the frequent turnover of British Prime Ministers creates a problem for Washington, D.C. in terms of building personal ties. He was also asked about whether the instability in government was impacting the special relationship, to which he said the special UK-US relationship goes on regardless of who our political leaders are. Now, that follows our GBNews exclusive from today, in which President Trump told me, as I chatted to him on my mobile from the kitchen, exactly why he thinks Sir Keir Starmer is facing an open revolt from within his own party, the government, and also the general public. He said to me, his two biggest problems, that's the Prime Minister, are energy and immigration. Those are, he said, his two big problems, he reiterated. He should open up the North Sea immediately and get your energy running the right way, and he has got to stop illegal migration. Well, let me turn to my panel now, and I want to ask this question, which I asked last night, and this might be a tricky one for you, Mark, because you may not be as familiar with these guys, but I think it's a fun question, and I'm going to keep asking it until we know who it is. Which of these potential Labour leaders would get on better with President Trump? Angela Rayner, Wes Streeting, Andy Burnham, Miliband?
That is a tricky one. I think the reality is that all of them will have to get on.
Yeah.
Even Starmer himself, struggled in the initial stages, but he essentially adapted and simply had to get on simply because it was so important.
But they sort of hate each other now.
I think it'll really come down to competence in terms of who's actually the better operator. And if I had to make a hierarchy, I would probably say Andy Burnham's probably the most effective political operator, followed by Miliband. And I think Angela Rayner, her base is much more left, and so she's going to get a lot of pushback. But I think no matter who it is.
But picturing them in the Oval Office, and I'm going to ask my panel in London this question as well in a minute, so get thinking down there, guys. Picturing them in the Oval Office, who is going to vibe with President Trump? Who's got the riz? I'm talking like my children now. To bring it into that room. Who's got main player character energy? Which of them?
The mayor of New York City. Now, everyone thought that they had clashed, they had attacked each other, they show up in the Oval Office, and it was like a love fest.
Yeah.
So I don't think that whatever the Labour government is doomed. I think that there's a path there, and they should speak to the New York City mayor.
Yeah. But that's because why? To my earlier point of Jonathan Liss, it's because my mind's gone blank. Mamdani.
Yeah.
Right, so the thing is, Mamdani is forthright. Whether you agree with him or not, you know what he believes in.
And they bonded. Remember, what the New York City mayor did, which was so brilliant, is ask the president for his advice on construction and building and development. That is the president's language. Look at the projects around D.C. that he's inserted himself in. And so I think there is a path, if there's a new prime minister or even your current one, to bond with President Trump. So far, they have not been successful.
Yeah. And Trump is a charming guy. I know somebody that actually worked with him in construction, building hotels in Chicago, and he said that he would speak to every single worker. He'd actually engage with them. You get to know them, and he's a charming guy. He knows how to play the game, press the flesh, as they say.
That's what I've always said. Watching him across a room, particularly when there are people in the room who are not important, like you say, the builders, the waiters, whatever, not important in inverted commas. He treats everybody the same. If you can walk with kings but keep the common touch, to quote Rudyard Kipling, it's that, isn't it? That's what he has. We were discussing last night that actually Angela Rayner might be the one that he would get on better with, because she also brings the no cares given kind of attitude.
No, that may be true. I simply, don't see that happening, to be honest. I think
Because you think it's a shoe-in for Andy Burnham?
Yeah, I think her base is probably just far too left for her to kind of take that position. You know, they're very, very anti-Trump, very hard left, and I think it'll be very difficult. It will be a very difficult balancing act for her.
See, Louise Mensch was on the show last night, former Conservative MP, and she was saying about Andy Burnham that she thinks he's much farther left than the other potential candidates. Whereas I don't see Andy Burnham as being far left. If he is, he keeps it quite quiet.
Yeah, he's probably a bit more, I think, to the centre. But the reality is, Bev, as I mentioned, the difficulty any of them are going to have is that the party's almost become ungovernable. You know, you have a very hard left and you have a very centrist Blairite wing. And even the reforms, you know, one of the reasons Starmer is in this situation is the reforms he tried to bring in, whether it's immigration, whether it's welfare, they were essentially stymied by the party. You know, they've had to reverse everything. So whomsoever takes over, you're probably not going to see a lot of change actually happening.
They should bring another state visit invite.
Yeah.
Yes, they should. He enjoyed that, didn't he? Right, let's go to my London panel now and ask. Let me start with you guys and ask that question that Jonathan and I were discussing this last night, though. Which of those candidates would get on best, Paul Cox, with President Trump? Who's going to walk into the Oval Office and get the vibe going, get the charisma, get the energy, get the connection that President Trump enjoys?
So I genuinely think it's nothing to do with the individual's politics per se. Unless their politics is their full personality, then that could be an issue. But someone like Andy Burnham can press the flesh, can speak to people, and I think would be somebody who would be able to speak to Donald Trump. I just do not see Ed Miliband being able to do that. Wes Streeting, who we're no longer mentioning because it's almost like he's out of the race before he's even put his hat in, I think Wes Streeting might have a chance as well. I once sat on a train carriage from Waterloo to Portsmouth with him and his team. I actually thanked him because everyone in the carriage was thanking him for doing such a good job, and I thanked him. I said, I'm thanking him because I'm a comedian on GB News and he gives me endless material. And he laughed, and I thought, do you know what? He's all right, old Wes. But he was able. I'm just saying. I could see the way that he was communicating with people. I can imagine Andy Burnham would do the same. I don't think it's about the politics. Angela Rayner might want to put on the facade that she doesn't like him for her particular supporters. But at the end of the day, Angela Rayner strikes me as a working class girl who would probably have no trouble whatsoever. But not Ed Miliband. I can't imagine Ed Miliband talking to himself in the mirror.
Miliband is the one that I think would have so little in common with President Trump. I think given that Trump's motto is drill, baby, drill, and Miliband is obsessed with green energy, I just think that would be the elephant in the room for the pair of them. I don't know how they'd get across that political divide in any way. Matt, how about you? What do you think?
I've said to you before, I think Angela Rayner would be box office. I think Trump would like her, actually.
Yeah.
I think they would get on very well. I think Andy Burnham would be likeable. I don't know what Donald Trump would make of him. Ed Miliband privately, I know it's a real visceral hatred of Donald Trump. I don't think he would enjoy that interaction in the slightest. It's not just about the politics of the oil or the environment. He can't understand what Donald Trump stands for and really doesn't like him. And it'd be interesting what he thought of Wes Streeting, because Trump's sort of quite like Peter Mandelson, the accent and stuff like that. Wes is a little bit clean cut and whatever. But no, I think Angela Rayner would be one where I think they'd get on really well, actually.
Does it matter, Michelle? Does it matter in terms of who's? I mean, it won't be factored into, you know, who decides who is going to be leading the Labour Party. But how important will it be in the next couple of years, if we've got that long before and the next general election? Will it be important that whoever replaces Starmer can build up a rapport with President Trump?
Yeah, I think definitely under this president it is much more important than it has been under previous presidents because of the volatility and the changes and the tariffs, etc. And building that relationship. And also on the backdrop, you know, with the whole Mandelson saga, etc. There is and the Chagos Islands, there's quite, and obviously now Iran, so there's quite a lot of repair work to do in terms of that relationship. And so you need somebody that can come in and sort of say, let's reset, let's restart, you know, let's continue with the special relationship, and Ed Miliband would just be a non-starter for all the reasons that we've said before, and especially in terms of the energy policy. I think the others have got a fighting chance, whereas Ed Miliband, we might as well forget it and tune out.
Ed is very popular, isn't he? Is it within the Labour Party members, Jonathan, that Ed Miliband is particularly popular, isn't he? Out of all of them, he's seen as to be the favourite. I find that utterly baffling. Who are these people? What do they like about him?
Well, I think that they like what you said that you liked in me before, which is authenticity. And you can see a guy who's been through it. He doesn't have anything left to prove. He's gone for the top job. He had the top job, well, not the top job, but in the Labour Party, the top job. And that didn't work out. And now you can sort of see since then that he's sort of been a man sort of released. What you saw after he got kicked out of the Labour leadership was a man who was much more at ease with himself. He really let his personality come through. Did guest stints, presenting on Radio 2, and had slots. Listening to people flush their toilets, and did all the things that his comms team forbade him from doing before. And people really started to like him.
He looked like an absolute wally.
No.
Absolute wazzer.
No, that was before.
I've never seen anything on social media that doesn't make him look like a total prat.
No, come on, you're mistaken. Like the whole kind of like pork bacon sandwich days are over, and I think people like him a lot.
I'm not talking about bacon sandwich. I'm talking about the ukulele. I'm talking about all the ukulele nonsense, all his net zero, all his TikTok videos. He looks like he should be locked up. Like, it's not normal behaviour for an adult man to be doing that kind of thing.
No politicians are normal, Bev. Come on.
Country.
But also there would be something bonkers of saying, oh, we've got this guy and he's failing, let's swap him out for the guy that we know failed last time.
Well, David Cameron had a second.
That would just be crazy.
But Michelle, remember that William Hague had a second life in politics as well after he was leader.
Not as leader or prime minister.
But a lot of people I think that William Hague, if he'd been around after Liz Truss, I think that a lot of Conservatives would have maybe thought about putting him back in, because he did have a kind of gravitas, he did have a track record.
He never had the headstone, did he? I mean, come on, William Hague was always a very effective operator.
Let's face it, what you have at the moment in the Labour Party, and it gives me no pleasure at all to say this, is a dearth of talent, or at least a dearth of box office charisma and competence and experience. What you have in Ed Miliband is you have a lot of ministerial experience. He's been there for a long time. He's a very good performer. He's smart. He's, by all accounts, a very good, competent minister. No one talks about, if they talk about his job being a threat, it's because of policy, not the way he actually acts as a minister. And in the Labour Party right now, what you need is a safe pair of hands, someone who can actually communicate a vision. And Ed Miliband is those things, and he's also come a long way since he was the last leader. I think he's got better, actually.
Yeah, but the vision that he has is not the vision that the country wants, or the vision that the country needs.
I'm not so sure about that, because
you drive us into the ground. Look at his energy policy and the impact that it's going to have on landlords. Look at the fact that he is just so ideologically blind to common sense when it comes to energy. Look, Donald Trump is on the money and he's not even in the country.
Well, I think that, coming back to the Donald Trump thing, Bev, I think it's really important to note that when Obama came, for example, to Britain in 2016 and mouthed off about the Brexit referendum, saying we'd be at the back of the queue, people on your side of the political fence, maybe not your side then, but your side now, were furious about it, saying that US presidents had no right whatsoever to get involved in British politics. And now Trump inserts himself into British politics all the time, and those people are completely silent. Where is the consistency? If it was bad then, it's bad now. I tell him to get butt out. It's none of his business.
Fast forward, Jonathan Liss, fast forward a few years, and there I am cooking my boiled eggs on the phone to the president, asking what he thinks about Keir Starmer. You couldn't have written it, could you? How times have changed. We've had this conversation before. You couldn't write it, but times have changed, and it's a really good point. But I think I totally hear you. I hear how this looks like hypocrisy, but I think what we're looking at here is the evolution of I mean, global communication, I mean in a positive sense as opposed to the way that I usually use the word global. But we're looking at social media, we're looking at the fact that every global leader these days gets involved in everyone else's business, don't they? They're always giving opinions to other people. President Trump more than ever. But is that a bad thing, Matthew, when people are commenting on other domestic politics?
I think what I'd want from my Prime Minister is to be focused on the job here. I think the only time you should be worried about other things abroad is if it's going to be war or, you know, something that may be coming down the traps into your country. Ultimately, I don't think it's... I don't know, maybe I'm going a bit weird and middle class as I get older, but it's just a bit uncouth. It's not quite British to be butting into other people's business.
Happens to us all.
Yeah, well, but so I don't like it particularly, and I think, you know, whoever the Prime Minister is should be just focused on what's going on here, I'd say.
You would never hear Starmer talk about any other politics, and you never hear him sort of mouth off about any other Prime Minister, any other president. He would never insert himself into another country's domestic politics. And no British Prime Minister has done that.
Are you holding a house in order? Listen.
You're almost trying to hold up Starmer as the example of best practice. I don't think he's the example of best practice in any category.
One thing to say about Starmer is that he is diplomatic, and he doesn't sort of talk about other countries in Europe, about their domestic political situation, and most people don't. You don't hear Giorgia Meloni doing it. You don't hear Macron doing it. It's just not how things work. But it's not how things work, Bev. It's not how politics works. It's not how diplomacy works.
But
well,
that's
to be honest, you do. Go on, Paul.
Well, I think that's a really interesting point that Jonathan's made. I don't know if he realises he made it, but that's not how things work. Is what's changed. It doesn't matter how things used to work.
It's not a good thing.
It really doesn't matter how things used to work. One of the reasons there's nobody in the Parliamentary Labour Party that can actually lead this country now, why there will be a general election within 2 years, is because this local election told us that Labour don't stand or are no longer connected to what the people want in this country. That vacuum, that void, has been filled by the Greens and has been filled by Reform. And if Reform don't perform, it will be filled by Restore. It's just going to keep going more and more populist because everybody understands the convention to be failed now. There is nothing, you know. I mean, I guess I'm a bit anti-establishment, particularly for someone who's now become on the right. I just think that what we have seen until this point has been totally and utterly destroyed by the Camerons, by the Starmers, by the Boris Johnsons, by the Theresa Mays, starting with Tony Blair, just systematically try to form our politics into one conventional shape and say this is how it must be. And the reason Blair's so important is because he set the foundations for everything that came. Everybody who's come since Blair has either been in his image or stuck by his image. So I think going forward,
I don't think you can say that Liz Truss was in the image of
Liz maybe wasn't. That's a good point.
The point here is not about convention, it's about good manners. It's about good manners.
That's precisely why she lasted 40 days or whatever it is, because she was different. That's the point. Everybody else that was dancing to that globalist tune. No. Everybody else that's been dancing to the tune of the World Economic Forum and the UN and the World Health Organization.
She went to the UN her first week in office. She went there.
She's still talking. Yeah, but she's not working for them. I think
there was any British Prime Minister working for the UN.
We could. Yeah, I tell you what. I'd like us all to write down in an envelope where we think Starmer will end up working in the next couple of years once he's left British politics.
But that's not the point, is it?
One of those
organisations. He's not working for the UN now.
I bet it is.
Of course, he believes in international relations, Bev, and in having Britain sort of being part of multilateral organisations. That's been the position of every single British government since the Second World War. That's a good thing. It's worked for Britain. It's built our prosperity. It's built our global relationships. They're just throwing the word globalist like it's a swear word.
No, anyway, we're not going to go down that rabbit hole again. I'm just going to move on now. I'm going to talk to a quick guest. Thank you, guys, for now. Let me talk It's a friend of the show, foreign correspondent Sarah Firth, Brit living here in Washington, D.C. Sarah, thank you for joining us on The Late Show Live. Great to see you again. So, your thoughts this evening as we sit here with Keir Starmer hanging on to that job by his fingernails, refusing to go, regardless of how many of his own politicians think it's a good idea. What should he do, Sarah, in your opinion?
Yes, Bev, well, Keir Starmer fighting for his political survival, isn't he? It was so interesting listening to the conversation you were having there with the guests, and over on the other side of the pond, of course, talking about the way politics is done, because the UK perhaps a few years behind where we are here in America, and you'll know well, Bev, under President Donald Trump, now in his second term, the old way of doing politics, that rule book has been thoroughly ripped up. And in fact, if you look at the Reform Party and a lot of what they've done, they've taken a page right out of the MAGA playbook and clearly delivering that humiliation to Labour. It shows that it's paying off. It resonates with the public. So it's a very difficult situation that Keir Starmer finds himself in. I thought actually today President Trump showing some unusual restraint when he was asked by a reporter as he was preparing to depart for his trip to China about it. He said that, look, it will be up to Keir Starmer whether he goes or not. Of course, he got in a little bit of a dig with his usual favourite topics when it comes to Britain on energy and infrastructure. One thing I do think is worth noting from this side of the Atlantic, Bev, is that when it comes to possible successors, the leadership challenge, where Streeting's name being thrown in there, of course, Prime Minister Starmer has that meeting with Streeting tomorrow ahead of the King's speech and opening of Parliament. And I do think it's worth pointing out that whilst on the UK side of things, and for our UK audience, Wes Streeting's past and his relationship with Peter Mandelson maybe doesn't seem so relevant. When it comes to the current geopolitical climate, the importance of Britain's role right now and its relationship with America, that arguably has actually been damaged under Keir Starmer's leadership. There's no love lost between President Trump and Keir Starmer. That's not anything new. That's not new information. But the Prince of Darkness, Peter Mandelson, he casts a long, long shadow. I do not think that this current administration would want anyone associated in any way with Mandelson, and certainly not to the extent that Wes Streeting in the past has been linked. And that's before you get into the internal politics, Bev, of, you know, whether Streeting has the numbers in Labour. But this side of the Atlantic, yeah, I think the Mandelson link would be problematic, to say the least.
That is such a good point, Sarah. I hadn't really contemplated. It's been such a fast-moving story, and it's been such a fast-moving day here as well. I've been in and out of the White House today and broadcasting into GB News throughout the day. The shadow of Mandelson that is cast across Streeting could also, as that whole legal process starts to evolve, you think could also backfire on Wes Streeting as well, and he gets pulled into that vortex, and then that could also bring him down. Is that what you're predicting?
It is, and I think it's also just worth, you know, when you hear the debate from the UK side, and I know a lot of your guests made the point that it's sort of don't get involved if you're the president or leader of another country in internal politics. But, you know, right now, the entire world really is in an economic crisis, given the conflict in Iran. You know, Britain and the United States' special relationship, that is at an, you know, it's important. It's kind of the point that Keir Starmer made today when he said, you know, that the country just wants Labour to get on with governing. I think it's maybe something that will be being taken into calculation. Certainly, I would imagine on Wes Streeting's side, you know, does he go for the throat here and have and launch a leadership challenge, not knowing if he's got Labour's numbers, but also when it comes to that Mandelson factor over here with this administration, I don't think that that is a relationship that they would want many links to. Yeah. I think that is something that would come into the calculation. As I said, it casts a long shadow.
Yeah, very much so. Sarah, thank you so much. Sarah Firth there. You see you back in the studio, Sarah, very soon. Thank you for joining us on this very busy evening in the Late Show Live. It's also Busy here in the studio. I'm now joined by former Chief of Staff to Marco Rubio, friend of the show, Matt Terrell. Matt, thank you so much. We're getting all of our big names and faces in here tonight to discuss what is an extraordinarily fast-moving situation in the UK. Having said that, a lot of people thought we would have had a bit more movement today. Starmer is clinging on despite his lack of popularity. What does it tell you about a president or a prime minister when they are clinging to this job, like for dear death as he is now?
You know, usually a president, prime minister, a candidate, they're the last to know, in the sense that they're the last to recognize that the end is here. And look, we'll see what ends up truly happening here, but I think the writing is on the wall. And the reason why Prime Minister Starmer's polling numbers are down is because a lot of bad things are up. You're seeing illegal immigration up under his watch, over 70,000 illegal immigrants entering the country under his prime ministership. You're seeing, you know, UK borrowing up, hitting record highs since the 2008 financial collapse. You're seeing energy costs up. You know, President Trump spoke about much of the reasons why Prime Minister Starmer is facing challenges. It's illegal migration, energy as the core drivers. So right now, what I think he's trying to do is start addressing these through speeches and rolling out over 30 bills that they will push forward with. I don't think that that's enough. It's not just enough for the voters, clearly, on the heels of the election results, also for the people of his own political party, and that's the driving force right now. He's facing addition, not addition, you know, multiplication right now, division, subtraction, which is the last thing you want to have in your own party. Divisions of traction. Just tell us what you mean by that, Matt. Well, division and subtraction in politics is the worst thing
I see.
You want to have, and the reason why is because what you want to have is, you know, a coalition around you, particularly in your own political base. And who else faced this? Joe Biden.
Yeah.
Joe Biden got pushed out of his own party, not from Republicans, but by people in his own party in the Democratic coalition. That's right now what I think you're seeing with the prime minister. He's facing those pressures, as we all are seeing right now, with the growing number of lawmakers in his own political base who are frankly doing all this because they're trying to cover their own tracks to cover their own political careers. That's the big thing.
I was just going to say, what do you learn about politicians at a time like this? It's a very telling period, isn't it, for any politician to see which way they go? Because we've had 100 politicians, weirdly we don't know who they are, of his MPs who've written a letter saying that they support him. Now they could be either doing what? Looking after their own seat, or is that their value, that they think that's the right thing to do?
You know, listen, I don't think all politicians are this way around the world, whether it's in the UK or the US, but many are selfish.
Oh, they're quite similar.
They're quite similar, right? Many of them are selfish, and they care about one thing and one thing only, their own political careers. Here in the US, we saw that with President Biden, and I was not a President Biden fan, but frankly, what I thought happened to him was not right. I think that at the end of the day, politicians in general are looking out for their own elections or re-election. In this case, I do think if you're going to do something like that, call out the prime minister, you should put your name behind it. But putting that aside, he is just facing major challenge right now that any incumbent in office often cannot survive. We'll see what the end result will be here.
Yeah, interesting. And President Trump didn't get drawn when he was getting on Air Force One today. There was a couple of journalists there that spoke to him at the White House, and he didn't get drawn onto giving his opinion specifically about whether Starmer should stay or should go. I deliberately didn't ask him that question when I spoke to him today, because I didn't think it was a fair question to ask the president. I didn't think he'd once give an opinion on that. I also, actually, to Jonathan Liss's point, I don't think it would be fair on Starmer, in fact, to ask that specifically, because I think it's a very personal judgment on whether he should go or he should stay. But my question about why did he think he'd lost the support of the public, that answer, I guess what you're saying is it didn't come as a surprise to you, because to everybody here in America, including the president, the reasons are obvious.
Well, for the president, I think he's looking at this and saying this is deja vu. I've lived this before. In 2024, why did President Trump become president again? Energy costs were sky high. You know, illegal immigration, a major challenge. You had people voting for President Trump who didn't like everything he said or every ex-post he put out there, but they agreed with him on the core issues, namely border security and the costs in general of living. And again, you're seeing that in the UK right now. You're seeing that those are the issues driving voters. And I think you saw that in the heels of these recent elections.
Yeah.
I think it's what's driving the political challenges right now that the Prime Minister is facing.
Yeah, OK, Matt, well, watch this space. You'll be back here in the studio soon, probably. We might have a new Prime Minister by then.
We'll see.
So we'll see. Matt Terrell, thank you so much for joining us. Right, so let me speak now to former Conservative MP Louise Mensch. Louise, I spoke to you on the Late Show Live last night, and we thought we might have seen that lectern outside of Downing Street this morning. We didn't. Were you surprised by that?
I wasn't totally surprised, because I think the simple thing about this is that a vast majority of the Parliamentary Labour Party want Keir Starmer out, but they cannot agree who to replace him with. And that really is what's saving him. I think I said last night that Andy Burnham of Great Manchester is his best friend, because a lot of people on the left of the Parliamentary Labour Party want to see Andy Burnham. He is their guy, and he cannot really, certainly can't stand to be leader of the Labour Party. You do need to be an MP. On the other hand, Wes Streeting, he was supposed to be wielding the knife. He bottled it today, I think it's reasonably fair to say. And there are conflicting reports saying he's going to have a showdown with Starmer tomorrow, or he's going to wait until after the King's speech and do it on Thursday. But I think if Wes Streeting does not make a move now, he probably is never going to. Once Andy Burnham gets back into the Commons, it is all over.
It's all over because Andy Burnham is then a shoo-in for this job, you mean? Because, as you said last night, he appeals to the left, but also Labour members know that he actually appears to be a decent, normal human being, and most people can relate to Andy Burnham. We're looking at him on the screen here. For our American viewers who might not know who the Mayor of Manchester is, that is a different mayor. Let's not go there. You think that if Wes Streeting doesn't move quickly, then the time will pass for a by-election to be called. We were speculating just now that there's one of the Bootle in sort of Liverpool, Merseyside. The Bootle seat might be a very safe bet for Andy Burnham. It's been Labour for 80 years. And so you think, Louise, the alternative pathway at this crossroads could be for that seat to become available, Andy Burnham to get in it. So it becomes a race at that point between Streeting and Burnham.
Yes, if Andy Burnham can get that parliamentary seat. I don't think he's going to take me up on my brilliant idea of just canvassing the MPs and declaring himself Prime Minister and getting parliamentary seat later. If he needs a parliamentary seat, that could genuinely be a significant roadblock, because The Guardian, which most people know is the United Kingdom's most left-wing broadsheet newspaper, lots of connections in the Labour Party, is reporting that Burnham's allies thought that this MP Marie Rimmer, who I think is standing is in St Helens, Merseyside constituency, was going to stand aside for him. And today she said not only is she not going to stand aside, but she backs Keir Starmer to stay. So now, how is he going to get in? I don't know if Bootle is a runner or rider, but I must say I haven't read about it yet.
And what do you think is going through the minds of those 100 MPs, Louise? And that we don't know who they are, so we can't speculate even who they are because it's anonymous. 100 of them apparently signing a letter to say we support the Prime Minister. Why?
Well, actually, Bev, I'm going to correct you there, because the letter wasn't anonymous. They signed their names to it, and then a couple of Labour MPs said, why is my name next to this letter, which I never signed? Rupa Hook, I think, she said that on Twitter. She's like, why are they adding fake names to this list of MPs? Because I did not sign this letter. But I think that there's a possible dark horse scenario here where the Defence Minister, not the Defence Secretary John Healey, the Defence Minister, Alan Cairns, who is frankly a badass. I know badass and Labour are not two words that often go together these days, but this man has the military cross. He's got an incredibly distinguished record. He was colonel in the Royal Marines, absolutely tip of the spear, you know, next thing to the SAS. And as I said, he's got the MC, which is the top military award after the Victoria Cross. So really, nobody is going to think of him as wimpy or boring like Ed Miliband, or, you know, lacking in oomph maybe like Wes. I think that if Burnham cannot get back in, he might run. And the reason I say this is that Reform have been teasing him all day about the fact that he registered a website called Al Cairns for Leader back in February. So I think possibly he saw the writing on the wall for Keir Starmer before the rest of us did. And if Burnham can't make it in, those guys are going to be looking for an alternative. And I think Al Cairns, Defence Minister, might be that alternative.
Brilliant, Louise. Great insight. Thank you so much for joining us on The Late Show Live again. Louise Mensch there, dropping in to the show. Interesting. Now, the Prime Minister has said the public expect the government to get on with the job of changing our country for the better. As he continues to defy calls to stand down, he said, Britain stands at a pivotal moment to press ahead with a plan to build a stronger, fairer country or turn back to the chaos and instability of the past. Now, those comments come ahead of the King's speech. There are going to be 35 new bills expected to be announced, and among them include legislation to further protect small businesses amid ongoing economic uncertainty caused by the conflicts in the Middle East and Ukraine. We believe it's going to say they will boost economic growth by reforming regulation, speed up the delivery of green energy technologies and national grid infrastructure, increase trade with the EU, further reform the immigration system, counter cyber attacks and hostile state threats online, nationalise British Steel, abolish leasehold homes, provide special needs education in mainstream schools, further remove NHS bureaucracy and provide more health interventions early on, and reduce the right to buy and provide homes for domestic abuse survivors. So this is what we think we're going to see in the speech tomorrow. Azim, let me come to you because I can see you. Some of this has caught your eye. What's jumping out at you about that?
I think looking at that, Bev, I don't think there's anything in there that anyone would actually disagree with. Boosting economic growth, abolishing leaseholds, etc. But the question is, are they actually able to deliver? You know, as I've mentioned before, Starmer came in with a huge majority, a massive mandate, and they've actually delivered nothing. And you know, his personality is one thing. If he actually just managed to get a few of those things done, I think he'd be in a very different situation now.
Can we just bring that list back up again so we can have a look at them? Because that's the first time that we've seen that. I presume this is just broken or embargoed this evening. So this is what we think, Mark Albert. So this is just landed now. So Mark, this is what we believe we're going to see in the King's speech tomorrow. What jumps out at you there in terms of changes to the UK, or what might be helpful, and how it maybe compares to the UK, to the US?
Sure. So I'm actually looking at through that US lens, and one of the hallmarks of President Trump's 2 terms has been pressing our allies in Europe to spend more on defense. What I don't see on this list is a specific defense bullet point here to raise the spending, which is not yet at 3% of GDP for the UK. The US, the proposal for $1 trillion USD in the Pentagon budget, which would be a 50% increase. Donald Trump now asking allies to go up to 5% of GDP. I don't see defense on that list.
No, that is a really good point in terms of what's there with as an omission. Increased trade with the EU, that's going to wind people up.
Yeah. Well, there's obviously no details there. It's just a few words. You know, what exactly does that mean? Nationalise British Steel, is there much to really nationalise anymore? And you know, or is just going to become another money pit in which you're just throwing lots of money? Reducing the right to buy, you know, that's probably not going to rub people up the right way. You know, we need more housing, more investment. It's just going to turn landlords off.
So it means, but presumably that means for council housing, right? Reduce the right to buy council houses and provide homes for domestic abuse survivors. That'll be controversial.
Yeah. But at the same time, it's interesting they've appended those two, because nobody would disagree that we need to take care of domestic abuse survivors.
The former investigative reporter in me is looking at the bullet point there that says counter cyber attacks and threats from hostile states. I would love to know what the UK government considers to be a hostile state. I suspect we may be surprised by 1 or 2 of the countries on there. And I would love to know what they're exactly referring to, who they're exactly referring to.
And how, because whenever this government get involved with our online world, all I see is greater surveillance, facial recognition, tell us who you are, no anonymity online, complete lack of privacy when you walk into the digital space. That's what worries me. And yet they try to shoehorn those sorts of changes in under the auspices of protecting you from a cyber attack or whatever it is, or a threat from a hostile state. I mean, the way they feel about America, they probably consider you guys a hostile state.
Well, I didn't want to say that, but
I knew that's what you were
I'm
getting
just
at.
really curious what states would be on that list.
Our inbox is saying here, nothing on that list about AI investments or digital startups, which could be about growing economic growth. Whenever they talk about economic growth in the UK, they pretty much always talk about AI, don't they, in that space. Let me ask our London mega brains what they think about this particular list. Michelle, let me come to you first, Michelle Donnellan. And we'll try and get that up again so you can see it. I don't know if we can do that, but I know it's a bit mean to have. Here we go. You can see them a little bit.
So the one that,
let's have a look at it. What's jumping out?
Yeah, the one that jumped out to me
Michelle?
was the protecting small business, because come on, this government is the government that have attacked small business. They're the ones that introduced the NI change. They're the ones that have also gone after dividends. They've made it so it's almost unaffordable to actually have a small business in this country. And of course, small businesses have also been grappling with energy costs, etc., during that period of time too. So I think it's a bit rich to put that in there. But there is nothing in here that screams to you, golly, this is exciting, this is going to restore Britain, or this is going to create an aspiration nation that's really going to get back on its feet. And you're right, there is a gaping hole with AI, and they always bottle it because they know it would become a bit of a Christmas tree there. So it's a bit of a dull read.
What about what about you, Matt Torbett? What are you looking at on that list and thinking, well, that's going to be good for the UK?
Yeah, there's a question.
Come on, Matt, there must be something.
Well, no, I think to sort of echo Michelle a little bit, there's nothing radical. The country is crying out for... And listen, radical doesn't necessarily mean left-wing either. There's many ways of being radical. There's nothing really that's going to shake anything up. It's quite protectionist. And I think... The thing that concerns me is the state of the economy. We can all talk about, it's going to cause chaos, Keir going and whatever else. The interest on our borrowing alone is 120 billion quid, and we're having to borrow to pay off the interest, and that's all we're doing. It's all on the never, which is exactly what Labour promised to not be doing at the general election. So if I'm honest, I would love to tell you there's something I'm excited about. It also doesn't help that on this screen here it's like reading Braille. So I can't get.
I feel like I'm having an optician's test. I'm happy that I can actually make it out because I was.
Yeah, Paul Cox, pass your glasses along the line, would you? Maybe the one that we're not focusing on as much, and we maybe should, is further reforms to the immigration system, restricting Article 8 of the ECHR, Jonathan. Do you greet that with a jubilation?
What do you think, Bev? No, I think that Labour's going... No, I don't, no. I think Labour's going the wrong direction, desperate to pick up reform voters who have no interest in going back to Labour. And this is not the way forward by sort of dumping further on immigrants. And I think that is why Labour has lost so much of its centre-left and left flank to the Greens, maybe also the Lib Dems, who are not afraid to say that we support migration. And those reform votes on the other side are not coming back either, so I think it's a mistake. One thing I do think is really positive in this, from what I can see on the list in front of me, is abolish leasehold homes. This crazy, outdated system that still blights millions of people in England and puts a noose around so many sort of homeowners' necks. It's way beyond time that this should have been abolished. The Conservatives talked about it and never did it. So if that is indeed in the King's Speech and Labour goes ahead with it, I think that they will win a lot of support from homeowners.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Paul Cox, what are you seeing on this list?
Well, there's some pretty obvious things on there that you think should, like, counter cyber attacks and threats from hostile states. You'll be thinking to yourself, considering how many major hostile cyber attacks there have been across the UK, which are not covered in the media for obvious reasons, really. There have been... I worked at TfL for 12 years, and in my last year at TfL, there was a massive cyber attack that virtually took the business down. It obviously wasn't talked about, but the more I learned about that, the more I realised that huge other companies like Jaguar, big corporates in the UK have been targeted by these hostile states. So that's where it's coming from. But it all seems a little bit reactive to me. It says something, it also says provide special needs education in mainstream media. No, sorry, schools. But that's a good That's a good thing. Okay, a little bit of understanding of this, but also it's a pretty obvious statement. Okay, they already have SEND in schools, and they already have special needs schools. And the reasons they already have special needs schools is because some pupils get a lot more benefit from having that one-to-one than they would do in a mainstream school. Yeah. So there's no context or nuance to this. So a lot of it just seems like platitudes, and it all feels a bit Starmer-ish. It all, to be honest with you, Bev, and I don't want to, I don't want to poo-poo the King's speech tomorrow, but it's a complete and utter waste of time. I mean, this is Keir Starmer's King's speech. He's going to be gone in a week.
Yeah, but it's still the government. It's still the government.
The special needs one is off the back of the white paper, so that is the one that we do know some of the detail for. Yeah. But you're right, in general, a lot of these are just vague sort of headline statements, like attacking regulation. Well, what government in history has not tried to attack regulation? It's been done again and again.
I'd love... the idea that further protect small businesses, the word further is doing a lot of work in that sentence, isn't it?
It's also offensive, actually, Bev. It's actually genuinely offensive.
Because it's trolling us. I know, it is offensive. I'm impossible to offend, as you know, and I'm offended by that word.
But I'm a small business owner, and this Labour government has done nothing for us, absolutely nothing. And they want to get the economy... In order to get the economy going, they need to have a sovereign fuel supply and cheap fuel, and they need to ignite the small business community. And they're doing neither. You've got Ed Miliband saying, we've just got to burn all our Hessian socks, and that'll have to do. And then on the other side, you've got this ridiculous national business national insurance increase, and I hate to say it because obviously a minimum wage can prove very useful, but the minimum wage has basically decimated the young working market. People 18 to 24.
I know.
Why would I employ someone with no experience for the same amount of money I can employ someone with experience?
And then at the same time, they've drove out all of the big wealth creators. And last year we saw the mass exodus of record numbers of millionaires leaving the country.
I think that's actually been overstated, the number of millionaires who are leaving this country. And a lot of those millionaires were not paying a lot of tax in this country anyway. Yeah,
but those people were the ones that were actually creating the jobs, that were going to set up they were the entrepreneurs that are setting up the businesses. And jobs don't grow on trees. The government does not create jobs. Businesses create jobs.
Michelle, I think it's a bit rich for you to be sort of complaining about millionaires leaving this country when you're part of the government that sort of completely hamstrung our economy by insisting on the hardest Brexit imaginable, which has led to a complete exodus of investment from this country and a slow puncture to the economy, which the most economic forecasters, very well-respected international organisations and the OBR have sort of put us anywhere between 4% to almost 10% of loss to our GDP as a result of that catastrophic decision and the implementation of it by your party and your government. So obviously
I think the get out of jail cannot always be Brexit. Come on, it can't.
I'm sorry, just because it's inconvenient doesn't mean it's not true,
Michelle.
Well, yes, it is Brexit, though.
We've got a government. It's undeniable that we have a government at the moment that is anti-wealth, that is anti-aspiration, that is anti-entrepreneur, and that doesn't understand that it is people out there that create the jobs, people out there that create the prosperity and the growth for our economy, and they're in cloud cuckoo land. And then you just say, well, it's all because of Brexit.
I didn't say it's all because of Brexit. I said it's rich for you to be complaining about this stuff when you're part of the government that deliberately sort of cut off a limb of our economy. We've had so much...
because we believe in democracy and honouring the vote.
We could relitigate this. They were relitigated. The Conservatives chose the hardest possible Brexit. We could have been in the single market.
Yeah, but Jonathan, it wasn't the Conservatives that did that.
It would have been
democracy. The British public.
No, the British public never voted to sabotage sabotage the economy.
Because they didn't know what they were doing, eh?
They never voted to sabotage the economy, and there was no vote about the single market. All the British people voted for was for us to leave the European Union. It would have been entirely possible to leave the European Union while retaining the trade links, with particularly the single market and the customs union.
They didn't vote for a half a job, did they?
The question was never asked, Michelle. I'm saying that the government could have... The government... Paul, I saw that on the screen. You're not going to get away with that, my friend. I can see him on the screen. He thinks he can get away with it, babe. He's not going to get away with it. I'm going to have words with him afterwards. I think you'll find, Paul, that I'm representing more of the British people than you are, mate, because in every single poll, a vast majority of the people think that Brexit was a big mistake and, moreover, would vote to rejoin the European Union.
I think that's absolutely preposterous, that what would actually happen is...
The loopy ear thing belongs with you, my friend.
Look, Jonathan, I got all the waspy women on my side. That is a massive cohort. The waspy women absolutely love me. I'm also the people's gammon, so you know that comes with a few supporters. I've judged this conversation, and Michelle's right and you're wrong. So move on, please.
I agree. I agree.
I don't think that's how you win an argument.
You are the only person in the world, Jonathan Liss. Jonathan, you're the only person in the world that seems to be clear on the effect of Brexit and the effect of the COVID nonsense.
Well, me
because
plus
you cannot
all of
judge
the world economists.
whether Brexit was a success. No, you cannot. It's impossible for anybody to tell, regardless of how you voted for Brexit. It's impossible to tell what damage has been Brexit and what damage was COVID policy, because that came hot on the heels of Brexit, and it absolutely put a bonfire to what would have been or could have been any sort of benefits.
But we saw investment leaving after the referendum.
We'll just never know.
After the referendum, in the years leading up to the actual implementation of Brexit, we saw that slow punch to the economy begin, with people moving. And in the months after Brexit, as I think we were talking about last night, when you just saw the sort of salmon producers, for example, go out of business in Scotland, for example, because of those supply chains being broken in real time.
Yeah, but we got to this because you deflected away from what this government is actually doing in terms of attacking business and the economy. And it was a clever tactic, but the truth is still this is happening today.
In the King's speech, for example, about we need close ties to the EU, and that is reversing, hopefully, some of the damage that your government did.
That the British public voted for.
The British public didn't vote for damage to the economy. They voted for us to leave the European Union. As it turns out, that was very damaging, the way the Conservatives implemented that decision. I'm simply asking the Conservatives to own that decision, and at least Starmer and Reeves are now saying openly that Brexit harmed our economy, because it's true, and the British public are on their side, not yours.
Just, we've only got a couple of minutes left, guys. And also, I just want to tell you this, Jonathan. Claire on the Your Say said, can I send a big hearty handshake to Jonathan Liss? Credit where it's due. I've really enjoyed his contribution on the show. He usually makes me switch off. So that's good, isn't it? At least you can go to sleep tonight and not have the same usual nightmares that you would have.
I'm glad I converted somebody.
Yeah, exactly. Well, before we wrap up, though, let me just ask. I want a straightforward question about what we're going to see tomorrow. In a nutshell, what day is it today? It's only Tuesday here, and it's only Tuesday. All right, it's Wednesday where you are there. By Friday, Paul, is Starmer still Prime Minister leading, and we have no off ramp by Friday?
I genuinely think it's 60-40. I think that something's going to happen after the King's speech, but Friday might be too soon. So I think Starmer could be here Friday.
Matthew? Is he still there by Friday, Matthew?
He'll still be there. Yeah, I think he will be, actually. I think he will be there.
Will we have a clear sight of next steps by Friday from him?
Well, next steps in the sense of he will continue to say he's the Prime Minister and he's governing this country. Yeah, I think that's where we'll be.
Michelle, just in a word, will we have an idea by the weekend of what's going to happen next?
I think it's too close to call, to be honest, at this moment in time. But certainly the change is imminent. The question is exactly when.
No one asked you, Jonathan. Good night.
Jonathan, yeah. Oh, we've run out of time. What a fun show. Thank you all so much. Thank you guys here in the studio as well. I'll be back tomorrow night, midnight. See you then.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within.